And to the republic which stands one nation, liberty and justice for all.
Move to the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented with the following amendments. Additional certified and classified personnel actions for consideration, item number E-3. Correction to item number E-4C, consider approval of an agreement between Centura Sienna Medical Audiology Clinic and United School District number 457, Garden City Public Schools for the 2023-24 school year. Item number E-4D, remove administrator handbook. I'd add item number I-1, executive session for the following reason: consultation with an attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privileged in an attorney-client relationship. Second.
Seconded, all in favor, raise your hand.
Can we have discussion?
Yep. Discussion.
So on the approval of the agenda, we had, to remove the administrator handbook, but I'm wondering, and I know we'll do the, handbook approvals, but I'm wondering if we can do that, later in the meeting after we've heard, well, I guess I thought, hold on a second. Why did I think we were gonna go over did that get removed?
When you get removed, it's not in the new business.
Hold on a second, let me see my old one.
To discuss the handbook, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, discussion, because I think we've had a lot of extra questions come in the last couple of days. Or a few days, I don't know how, maybe if people have been reaching out to you all. And so it would be great if we could get some of those questions asked at the meeting.
Specifically for the administrative handbook.
It's been specifically for the classified and substitute handbook, just a couple of extra questions, so. If we could either approve them all under like maybe unfinished business and allow for some discussion. And I don't mean to put you on the spot to ask questions on those, whoever with those changes, but
We can have discussion before this motion too, but if you feel like.
or we
might
could have
not
discussion
pass, I mean,
now.
up
I
to
mean,
you.
it's not that I don't want to pass it, I just want to ask. Or if people have questions about that. So do we do it just here? That would put people like, I was maybe who's gonna be able to answer questions.
How about we move item E-4D off the consent agenda and put it under new business?
That's just the administrator handbook, which I don't mind removing that one completely.
Well, I'm referring to all the handbooks.
Oh,
The entire
okay.
handbook
So
section.
all the cuts, yeah.
To amend the motion. Jackie, would
The approval.
I mean, we can remove it, but I'll also remove administrative for tonight, because I know there's probably a lot more to do with the administrative, but the other two that I just have questions on, I'd like those to just, if we can move that to.
that's classified and.
So we could just do them all E4D like Andy said, and then I just have questions on those two, so.
So amend the motion. Stated with the change of. Moving item E-4D. Under. New business?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded with the following amendments. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Do you have any, other comments, correspondence? We'll move to the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I'm going to refuse for the motion for consent agenda.
Moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same signs. Unfinished business. We'll start unfinished business with item E4D. That'll be under new.
That's
So little leaders. Business little leaders in PCK partnership.
Mr. President, I'm going to recuse myself.
So since the last meeting, we have now a drafted agreement from legal counsel. And we also have survey results to share. So I'll just go over the survey results quick. So we sent out a Google form to our staff. Great, so we sent out a couple of questions to staff just to get some responses to bring back to the board. We didn't go into anything in depth. We just wanted to know general questions. So the first one was, do you currently have a child that's enrolled in Little Leaders of Garden City? So yes, 2, no, said 59. So you can see a total of 61 responses. Would you be interested in utilizing one of the available daycare spots that could be available at Little Leaders? Of 61 responses, 15 said yes, 46 said no. We then asked if you answered no to the previous question, would you be more likely to consider a spot at Little Leaders of Garden City if the weekly rate was discounted? So we really wanted to know, would that entice more people if the rate was discounted to then move their children there? Of which 32 said yes, 14 said no. So you can see if the rate was discounted, 32 yeses versus the previous 15 yeses. And then the final, are you interested in before and after school care options that are offered by Little Leaders? Yes, 22, no said 39. And that was it, just to kind of survey results, see what our population, if they were interested in this concept or not.
Can I ask a question just with the survey?
Yep.
So you got 61 responses out of how many employees do we have in the district?
Total 1,150 to 1,200.
But we also, if they didn't have kids that needed daycare, they would have filled out the survey, so.
Oh, you
And-
sent them to only people.
Well, we sent it out that, hey, this is about daycare responses.
Okay,
Additionally, this is also sent over at a time where
sure.
not all staff are also,
I guess
back
that's the
in
point.
school.
Yeah, but I'm trying to make. is
yeah,
that
I mean,
Even though we surveyed, the district doesn't mean not everybody who potentially.
It's a small portion, right, that is potentially proportionate to the larger. It's just to summon some sort of responses since we are in a tighter time frame. We wanted to at least see what the generalized idea is or receptiveness to it. So, other than that, we also have a drafted legal agreement that was also included for your review. So this includes the 8 daycare spots and the 2 after-school program spots to essentially cash flow value for value for a district versus what the district is providing to little leaders. They also have their legal counsel reviewing who will supply any edits as necessary. We wanted to just get it in front of the board, find out what the next directive is now that we've provided this.
So you guys looking for a decision from the board this evening? Waiting for their legal counsel to give us a final document.
I think we would like to know from the board what the board's directive is on. Is this something that you want us to continue to edit the agreement, make sure that we have a final agreement to move forward with? That is the intention so that little leaders will know next steps and we can proceed from there.
To discussion. Share their opinion. Direction or next steps, maybe we can direct administration and little leaders.
I have a question, Colleen. Can you talk about the whole financing reimbursement piece, the cost of the district to provide these potential plans for how we would make this available to our staff, and also have staff pay for a portion of that, and then what the funding mechanism would be to cover any difference between the cost and reimbursements from the staff.
So our costs on the district side, what we are looking at administrative, so all in cost, we believe $8 per student per day. So when we've calculated that was on the previous presentation. When we've calculated that out, we've looked at approximately $80,640 as our total cost to the district to provide it. The way that we are going to fund this is it'll be covered and reimbursed by federal and state aid that are dollars that are specifically designated to purchase food and reimburse for indirect costs for utilities for the nutrition department.
What about the cost of the employees? What was, I know obviously you presented one last, can you kind of summarize what you presented last time, and is that still the?
So if we charged $190 per spot, we would be able to cash flow it, no problem. If we did not, up to the board's discretion on what that discount would be, we could calculate out what that would be. What we proposed was a $40 discount for each of the staff members. That is all gonna then also be calculated, of course, on what time period each of those employees fill it. Then if there's a lag between a couple of days, there's gonna be an additional burden on the district. So it's going to be a little bit of a moving target. But the same thing could go for the district of reimbursing with state and federal aid for those dollars as well to reimburse utilities as an exchange.
Can you talk a little bit more about that funding? What is it and how? Is there any other ways, or what's that money supposed to be used for? And then could that money be the money that we would use to pay for, I'm gonna call it the gap between what we, if we do a $40 discount, that gap, what other things could those dollars be used for?
Food purchases and utilities.
Nothing
So-
else?
No, so you're talking about electricity, gas, rent and or overhead, and then, insurance and straight food vendor expenses.
So where is that money? That's all reimbursement from the state and federal? That's not
Tax
local,
dollars.
local tax dollars?
So, the other fact to just share, our auditors share it every single year with us. It ranges a little bit, but for every dollar that's spent at the district, 11 cents of that dollar is from the local taxes versus state and federal.
So this wouldn't be local tax dollars being spent on this program.
I want to mention something too. This is part of, well, it's part of a broader conversation, but 457, we've talked about this for a number of years. And as have other districts. And so there are some of the smaller districts provide daycare for their teachers. We've scratched our heads on how to do that. We've talked with the city about in their planning and their building out for housing, which includes housing for teachers. How we might structure housing communities to maybe include daycare hubs, for lack of a better term. I mean, we got to keep looking at this from a lot of different directions, and I just feel like this is one option that seems to be viable. And it's just sort of a start. I don't want to call it necessarily a pilot. It certainly is the first one of these agreements that we've entered into, correct? So it is trying to find those avenues to provide that daycare that we need to attract and keep families and our teachers particularly.
I mean, with that, Mark, I think it's really important to, also address that administratively, it's going to be a lot of work as well for us to make this happen. So several departments are going to be impacted by this decision to make it work or not make it work. And that's, there is a cost to that, of course. So it's not saying that this is an easy fix for staff to be able to address, but we're willing to try it for a year to pilot it to see what that looks like. But know that to make it work, staff are really going to be eager to work at it.
It just seems like we've got to try these things. Think about them very, very carefully. But then if there is an avenue there that seems to make sense, try it. If we can afford it. Because it addresses a need. That trickles all the way down to kids in the classroom and their ability to, say, participate even in activities. So it seems to make a lot of sense to me.
I'm gonna go a different avenue a little bit. As much as I think this is a good organization and an opportunity for the community, because I know there's a lot of parents that daycare. I worry about maybe a conflict of interest here and going astray from the mission of our district. So I'm a little uncomfortable with moving forward with it at this time. I do think there's an advantage or a benefit to eventually have some district supported childcare in our district. But I don't feel like jumping into it this quickly I think there's gonna be a lot of opening of Pandora's box in a sense, with people saying, well, this benefit doesn't go to me or community members. Even though it's not local tax dollars, it's still tax dollars. And so I don't know, I'm not convinced yet.
Can you share a little bit, well, you made a comment about conflict of interest. Can you talk about that a little bit? Share a little bit more with.
Well, and maybe I'm not using the right term, I guess. It's my understanding that Little Leaders is a nonprofit, but a private organization, and when it was called community daycare, it was my misinterpretation that it was a public entity. So I guess I I would look for partnering with a public entity faster. Not negating nonprofits at all, because I'm part of one and several that I think are very important, and community partnerships are a big deal. I just want to make sure it's done right, and I'm not comfortable is really the only word I can use right now, and I always vote my conscience. And I've asked a lot of questions, and I've heard different sides of it from community members that have taken time to reach out. But I'm always come here with the willingness to have my mind changed, so that's why I want to listen to everybody at the table, but at this point, it's not something that today that I'm necessarily in favor of.
So I have my work cut out.
Yeah. Slide up.
I'm kind of on the same page as Jennifer. I would like to see it. I would like to see a partnership, but something a little bit different, structured a little bit different, maybe with a reimbursement plan, and they participate in the their state portion, federal portion of it as their entity. I just, with it benefiting just only a couple of employees, I feel like it needs to be something. I'm not there yet either. Taking the financial responsibility of it.
And I also, the extra work for our staff. I worry that we're already strained in some areas. And I don't want to put that on there. Sorry to piggyback off.
I see it as balancing out when it comes to the work. I mean, we have to work incredibly hard to try and attract employees to come to the district. We all know that finding good teachers, retaining teachers it's at critical mass, I mean, at this point. And I think our staff has to work incredibly hard to create new ideas, to come up with new programs like the student learning program, the student learning program last year, which I'm sure took a lot of effort as well. This is a community issue, for sure. And I think so, not only is it an issue for the district, and I see it as a recruitment and retention tool, it is critical for the community, and the community supports the district. And so I think that if the community continues to struggle with childcare, then it's a problem for all of us. Because we don't get people to come to our community, we don't get kids coming to our schools, we don't get the funding for kids coming to our schools, it's a domino effect. I do believe there are probably kinks. It's not a perfect plan by any means. I understand too. I hate getting something where we feel like it's rushed. I think we've commented on that a lot. And so sometimes that is unfortunate, but sometimes you do have to make quick decisions that you feel are in the best interest of the district and the community both. So I'm very on board with this. I'm worried. I'm not going to say I think it's like stellar and there's not going to be any problems with it. I would like if the board does vote to proceed to see what that policy looks like, because I hope it doesn't just benefit a couple of staff. I would hope that there's a way to make sure that those with the greatest need or definitely positions that we need would have some kind of, good chance of getting those spots. But I guess just having a number of friends who do have children in childcare, it is extremely difficult to find even one spot. So to get 8 spots is significant. I know 8 doesn't seem like a significant number, but I just know how hard it has been for friends to find one spot. So I hope that we will think about it. I agree. I don't think it's a perfect or ideal, like the complete package, like it's awesome and we know it's awesome. We don't know it's awesome, and that is scary. But I don't think it puts us out financially, really, and like I said, the work that it would cause, I think potentially has the benefit of easing some of the relief on our staff that have to work so hard just to get people to come and stay here.
Earlier, I did forget to mention that in the agreement, it also includes first right of refusal on any openings. So there is potential for it to end more than just the 8 employees for the normal daycare and the 2 after school. So, just wanted to make sure that you all know that that's in the agreement as well.
Can you talk about the agreement we currently have with St. Dominic's provide meals?
Nope, that's a Tracy thing.
Okay.
That would be a neat thing. So the agreement that we have with St. Dominic's is basically we are their food vendor. We do a contract, which is a prototype from the USDA. So St. Dominic's is under the National School Lunch Program and they claim reimbursement. So they keep track, they keep their rosters, they keep track of who eats. And then they in turn do like we do, turn that in for reimbursement. As a vendor, what we have done is we worked into the price that we would have one of our ladies go and serve it just because of the accountability. It's very hard to administer a program from the outside. You have to have somebody on the inside to make sure all the rules are being followed. So basically, St. Dominic's applies for reimbursement and then we bill them for every meal we serve. So it's more of a contractual, like a vendor.
And is it are we bill them, how much do we bill them?
We bill them a reimbursement rate. So this is kind of a little complicated. So they buy their own milk. So I take the reimbursement rate, I minus the milk that they purchase, and then I add in a cost to cover our employees. So as a federal, the majority of the food service money comes from federal sources, from the USDA. So we can't take a loss on any vendor, any agreement that we go into with another entity. So St. Dominic's is under the same umbrella as we are. Basically, they get funds from the same foods USD National School Lunch Program that we do.
So what is different about Little Leaders program compared to St. Dominic's in regard to USDA funding programs?
Well, how do I want to explain this? Little Leaders has, so there is USDA funds. It's called the CACFP. There are funds that daycares can do enter into an agreement like we do. Their fiscal year is October to October. So you enter into a fiscal agreement. Actually, our supper program at the high school is under the CACFP program. So it's a whole nother, it's different reimbursement rates, a whole nother set of rules that they do. So daycares do, and I think Little Leaders are in the CACFP at this point. Like I said, it was from October to October. They've only claimed reimbursement for 2 months, December and January. So they do. There is funds available. Now, would the funds that Little Leaders get from the CACFP cover like the reimbursement rate plus whatever we'd have to charge them? No, it would not.
So this agreement with them is different than the St. Dominic's. It doesn't,
It's night and day.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
So
and you said that you said something about, as a vendor, we can't take a loss on that. In this scenario, does that rule apply? Because we're not billing them for meals, right?
yeah, so I'm billing the district for the meals that the nutrition service department serves.
Tracy, while you're up there, I'm sorry to interrupt, Andy. I thought in some of the notes, and maybe we've had so many notes, so I could be totally wrong. I thought they weren't gonna do the CACFP.
Yeah, and if they do, they do enter this agreement, they will not be able to do the CACFP program. Because just like my funds, they're specific on where they can go from. So Little Leaders will not be able to do the CACFP program because they can't spend that money on anything but food, and they're not paying us for the food. Does that make sense?
No.
For the service.
All in all, we vetted it and it's not gonna work to go that route.
This agreement, if we're compliant with every rule, is it fair to say that, we're following all the rules we're supposed to follow by doing this agreement? This
Right,
isn't-
so
we're not violating any rules.
No, and I've checked with the CACFP
coordinator, I guess the state consultant here and my consultant. And we've hashed out many ways, make sure. So we are basically catering to little leaders. So I don't have to follow any meal patterns. We are providing food. Now in our contract that we wrote up, I wanted to be specific, I wanted to be fair to them. So we have, basically we'll follow the CACFP guidelines, so I assure that we're providing enough food and they're getting the bang for their buck, or they're getting adequate meals for their students.
And the funding for this is the allowable use of those dollars within that, those reimbursements that we're getting from the state and federal level?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have capacity? How do you feel about capacity within the nutrition department to supply these?
I don't think it'll be we'll make it do. We always do. I do not want to get into the daycare business unless we are prepared to get into the daycare business. So if we were to take on little leaders, that's fine. We can handle that. But I can tell you that other daycare providers have approached me. I know Head Start every year. We provide the meals for Head Start every year. And I think we have a good relationship there. And she's constantly saying, well, is this year the year? And I was like, oh gosh, no. There's a lot of, with the CACFP, that's taking on a whole new avenue. And I would definitely have to hire more staff in order to do that.
In order to take on daycares, but not in order to do.
No, not in order. And I'm sorry, I kind of deviated from your question. I apologize. No, what we'll have to do, we will probably just use our staff. We did hire we got a board approval for 2 additional roving subs last year. We'll probably use one of those subs to transport the meals, but we're only talking right now between 30 and 50 hot lunches. So we would provide those hot, and then we would send over the breakfast and the snacks cold, and they would prepare those over there.
I believe they said your capacity 70, something around 70 max.
Yes, for the traditional.
So at 70, you're still.
Yeah, we're already, the meals will come out of probably horse skin, and we're already, preparing almost 2,000 meals out of there. So a few more, we can handle the load.
And we do work with Head Start for summer meals, right? We do provide their summer meals.
Yeah, we provide everybody their summer meals. The YMCA, we do the summer meals. We do the Head Start summer meals. We could do Little Leaders summer meals. The difference between the summer school program and like the National School Lunch Program is our community, everybody eats free. So it's a lot easier. Everybody's a number. They're not a name. So it's a lot easier to provide those meals because there's not as much administrative overhead on those. So
like sack lunches, they're not like hot meals.
we actually through the Y I have a lady, they have enough meals. They serve between anywhere from 70 to 90 kids. And so with that reimbursement, I can afford to, I have a lady that goes over, takes the hot meals over from Horsegood, serves the hot meals. We do that there, now at the library, the health department, we do sack meals. The Head Start, what we do is we provide them with basically a meals for the week. And then the Head Start staff prepares those. So we provide them basically the food.
You said that if they would do the CACFP program, their reimbursement wouldn't be what it would cost.
No. So basically the reimbursement is, so you get a certain amount for every paid student, a certain amount for a reduced student, and a certain amount for a free student. Now, with the clientele at the Little Leaders in the past, they haven't had a lot of people qualify for the free program. So with the CACFP program, everybody has to fill an application and they have to fill out an enrollment form. And what they do is you monitor how many kids you have, and you have to certify 1 month. And so most people certify in October. So if they have 10% on free, 10% on reduced, and 80% paid, then that's what percentage they'll claim for the rest of the year, unless they want to recertify. So they could always recertify, like they feel like they have a couple families that would qualify. They could go ahead and recertify and change those percentages. So it is kind of a complicated government program, but
And like Head Start, I mean, in order to qualify for Head Start, you already have to be like well below, you have, the federal government sets those guidelines, so that's determined and that's why it makes
Head
it a
Start
lot.
would definitely get more reimbursement just because they would have more free kiddos qualified.
Question for Lila, do you see this, like, this agreement as a 1-year pilot agreement? Does Little Leaders, what is your long-term plan?
Long-term plan is to sustain. And as we know, that's our direction, that's our goal, is to sustain the program, to sustain the meals. And so for sure, right now, it is given us that opportunity that year to get us to where we are sustaining and seeing a flow of income coming in, but not only that, being able to apply for grants. We have grants that we can apply for. At this point in time of the year, you probably know grants are not available specifically or just in general for this kind of stuff. And so giving us this year will give us that opportunity to look into grants to help us for meals and potentially be able to give that form of reimbursement back to you guys if the agreement.
I guess one other question I had about in that vein was, the Little Leaders see doing your own food in the future or always looking to an outside organization provide you food?
I don't know. That's a big question because we have done our food in the past and it really is a big financial, I guess you can say just a big financial ask because of how much it is. It's about $12,000 a month in just food. And so it's a big question and I can't say yes for sure, but for sure it would be a nice goal to have and a good plan to have. Sorry, I didn't really answer the question.
I have a question maybe for Tracy. If the agreement would include something that it was a partial reimbursement or a discounted reimbursement rate, would they still qualify for the CACFP program?
I got you. I've got it down by this.
I still
point
can't say
that
it.
we've got the abbreviations.
I believe that they would have to reimburse us the money that they would get from the CACFP program.
What are they gonna do without this agreement?
Huh?
What are you gonna do without this agreement?
We are looking at closing, financially speaking, that's where our finances are right now. If we don't get the partnership with the school, the potential is very high that we would have to close. The board that is on right now has been on board for almost going on a year and we have ran into many, many walls. And I've never been on a more active board to find out how to keep this daycare going, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we've been running into walls, but finding doors to go through. And so really, I think we will try and find a way to figure it out. Fortunately, but fortunately for the kids that we serve right now, for the families that we serve right now, we'll do what we can.
Have you explored other options besides the district if the district doesn't come through?
Yes, prior to coming to the district, we have gone and spoken at the city commissioners. We had a parent speak, let them know it was actually right whenever everything started kind of falling the way it has been falling. We've let the commissioners know exactly what was going on, what we needed help in. We have reached out to the college and it was that theirs was going to still be at about $4 a meal if we wanted to try and find a partnership with them. We've gone to the commissioners as well, and we've just any member that we've had on the board or any parent that we've had on the board, we've been pretty open to the community that we need help. We need the support, and like I said, there's a few of us on the board right now that we have been able to write grants. And so we are in the motion of also writing grants, but specifically for this, we do not have a grant right now. But potentially in the future, there will be.
Does the city and county typically allocate funds to?
I'm not sure. I want to say that, most recently there was a big chunk of fund that came from, the city to go specifically for a daycare. And it wasn't our daycare, that it came to, but it was a daycare that's supposed to be, starting in the city. But my understanding is it hasn't happened, and we actually went to that, group and asked for support, and at the time it was not gonna work out for that partnership.
You talked to the hospital.
Yes, we've approached the hospital, sorry, Brett. We've approached the hospital, and as of right now, because they provide, from my understanding, a stipend or some form of reimbursement to, their staff for daycare, they would not be able to fulfill a certain partnership. The only community daycare? No, there is Dreams, which is also you guys can think community-based daycare, so it's classroom based. But Dreams, us, and then the other daycare that is to be starting as well.
Dreams isn't income based. I know the one in or maybe it's a mix of income based and regular. The one in Liberal, because Dreams is in Liberal too, right?
Right, right.
But the one here, it's not income based. It's okay.
No, it is not.
Okay.
Dana, maybe you
Not from
can
my
answer,
understanding.
sorry, for me. What is the definition of a community daycare? Because like I said, originally I had the impression it was tied to government.
I just meant like a facility rather than like a in-home daycare.
So then they're all considered private daycares still.
Well, like Head
Profit
Start.
versus
You can't-
nonprofit.
I mean, I'm not gonna try and
Or maybe I need to
figure
ask
that
somebody
out.
else.
Yeah, I just know like, for example, Head Start, you have to be qualified according to your income. So I wouldn't really call that like, yes, it's a community daycare, but it's income based. And let me tell you, the federal government, like income that you have to be below is so low. So it's very, very low income. So then the community, that's why I was asking what is available for community, like a facility, because otherwise it's just in home. And I know obviously those tend to be a lot smaller and so fewer spaces are available and so.
I just want to make sure I understand the definition correctly, because I feel like we're gonna be approached by in-home or private daycare saying, why can't you do that for us? Because obviously I had a misunderstanding of what a community is. So so I don't know who has a definition to help clarify that for me.
And I guess if I could speak to on the difference, I mean, there's many differences between Little Leaders and the classroom-based, community-based approach, but then for an in-home daycare. So the main difference is we are classroom-based. So we have a classroom for babies, separate from a classroom for 12 months to 2.5. And then another classroom for specifically that 2.5 to about 3.5, where it's like the potty training. And then on to preschool, where it's 3.5 to going into preschool, going to Garfield, and then also it goes up to that 6-year-old going into kindergarten. So we focus on the specific ages, separate them into their classrooms to meet those developments within those age groups. And then also that focus on that curriculum, so that education piece is going to be really important and is really important to us.
I agree with that. My question was more maybe based on where funding and that kind of stuff comes from, but that helps. Thank you.
Any more comments? Questions?
I guess where I'm kind of at with this is, what I like about it is we're able to take available funds within our district that we really can't use for things like teacher salary or anything of that sort, or staff salaries, and kind of parlay that into a benefit that we can provide to our staff. What I don't like about it is it's confined to 8 spots and 2 before and after care. So I don't think it's casting a very wide net, where I'd like to see something that, and maybe it's just and I understand these different options are a lot of different work for staff, but where if it was just a discounted rate for USD-457 employees or something of that sort, something that can be of more benefit to more staff than just the parents of up to 10 kids. But that being said, a pilot program for 1 year, I think it's worth trying out. I would be in favor of it.
Journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and you've got to move in the direction that you know you have to move into. And, but in a very considerate way, and I feel like this is a considerate.
I have concerns about this agreement between us and the little leaders. I feel like the fact that no other entity in the community will step up and help them, and that the district is their last resort, is a little unfair to the district in a way that, hey, you're putting it on us that if we don't help, you're going out of business. And that's not good business. So I don't appreciate that approach. I do understand that we need daycare and we need childcare. I do agree with Andy that the selection process of what staff may or may not get to put their kids there could cause more problems in the district than maybe value. And I struggle with using taxpayer dollars to go down that avenue. So at this point, I'm a no. But as a board, we're split 3-3, and Randy's has to be out, so I don't know where that leaves us as far as continuing down the road or not continuing down the road.
The next step would be to entertain a motion. We already kind of have the idea that it's gonna be split. I'm not sure. Well, still do it. This way, but then we have to decide.
I don't know what the issues are with the other community organizations, but somehow we have got to provide some leadership.
I agree. I just, like it was stated that I'm not sure that it's the district's place or time to go into the daycare business. That's where I'm struggling.
It's not directly the daycare
I know.
business, it's the catering business.
I know.
I know we were approved by another daycare about food. I think that opens a can of worms. Everybody in town is gonna come and ask for the district to, every struggling entity or every entity that's on the ropes is gonna come to the district and ask for relief. May not be in the form of food, it may be in some other form. I think it sets a bad precedent.
How long has the St. Dominic's agreement been in place?
Oh, boy. We started out with St. Dominic's and St. Mary's. Oh, Andy, I'm trying to think how many years. It's been, I think this will be the 5th year.
Was that a board decision to do that, to enter into that agreement? Because you recall?
I think it went, I'm not for sure. It was a contract between Nutrition Services and St. Dominic's. There was, they were just giving us reimbursement. So I don't think it had to go through the board, but I'm sure that, I went to our superintendent at the time, it was Dr. Carlin, and just said, hey, St. Mary's and St. Dominic's are struggling. Basically, their struggle is help and getting food. And we can get food we're a big district. We can get food at a cheaper rate than other entities can. And we have to follow all the rules. And so that's another big issue when that review comes around, and it's hard to For smaller entities, it's hard to stay within the regulations.
That contract, what are the terms of that contract? Is it renewed every year?
It's every year, yes. Actually, St. Dominic's has a new principal, but we are working on that contract now. But it's a prototype, and I'd be happy to share it with you. It comes through the USDA. It just basically spells out what we're gonna do, that we are going to follow the National School Lunch Regulations. We are gonna prepare enough food, food safety. In our contract, we did add that we would supply the person to serve it, just because it makes my life so much easier.
So that's not in this. Do you
No.
have any concerns
No.
about that?
No, basically, I would say, we're more of we're just supplying the food. My department's supplying the food. We're preparing it, we're purchasing it, preparing it, taking it to the daycare and bringing it, and doing that back. Other daycares, it would probably be more like, I would prefer it to be more like St. Dominic's, because it's cut and dry and we bill them for reimbursement. They're getting the reimbursement. But this situation is different. So it was one of those things when I was approached, it's like, oh, I can't provide the meals for free. Legally, I cannot do that. I cannot take a loss.
Okay, my other question for you, this might be putting you on the spot, but this program would cost us $80,640. Is that right, Colleen? What you said? Has there been any discussion about the district providing that under the same just agreement and just charging the Little Leaders of Garden City $80,640 for providing the meals?
Yes, there was that discussion and financially, the Little Leaders wouldn't be able to pay the $8. Is that what you were?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
because the value of this, the value of the 8 full-time childcare slots and 2 after school is actually, you do the math right here, $86,060. So it's actually more than the cost that we would be billing you if we took that route, right?
Right, and so I think the way that we look at it is what we can do is provide you with what we already have. And so we have the ability to provide you with good quality care with the programs that we have to offer. It's the financial piece that we wouldn't be able to provide you with right now.
I'm just the middleman.
Yeah.
So-
I'm just asking about, I'm just trying to look at all of them here.
I understand the board's concerns too, and there is not a daycare in town where people are getting rich off of childcare, okay? Like, nobody does childcare to get rich. And I think that's well known, well established in the community, so what is disappointing is that this is a critical issue for the entire community. And yet nobody's taken it up, not churches, not other organizations, not the city. Maybe the city is trying. I know they have been, and I don't know where they're at with that. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, because we are in the business of kids and doing what's best for kids. And these kids will be our kids. And if they don't have good foundation, if they don't have good childcare from the start, it does put extra stress on the parents, and it can create long-term damage with that as well. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I don't know if this is gonna work. It might be a disaster, but I think it's something that we should try.
If I can add a little bit more to it, I think we mentioned it the last time that we presented as well, but we do vision this partnership going beyond just meals and the traditional childcare spots. I mean, we envision your students who are looking into early education or going into education, coming and doing any hours within our teachers that we have within the daycare, partnering with whatever teachers are teaching that program within the schools, allowing those students to come observe, gain that experience before they go on into their bachelor's, master's program. And then potential, you always want your community members that leave here, the homegrown ones going out and gaining their master's and bachelor's in schooling, but coming back and giving back to their community. And that's just the hope that we have too, is that they will get a good experience at Little Leaders and want to come back after they have their degree to be able to teach.
Are your teachers, are they certified teachers?
No, they're not certified teachers. What they do have is the ADHD training requirements that they need to have for the ADHD hours that daycare would have. Right now, we have a board member who is a certified teacher. She is a teacher with the district, kindergarten teacher, and she's the one that has been heading up the curriculum with the staff and going to be helping and encouraging and helping them work the process of doing the curriculum.
I would just, I mean, I guess in closing, I would encourage the community to step up for this daycare. I mean, we've heard how important daycare is to our community. We know how important daycare is to our community, but for some reason, the county, the city, private entity, whoever that is, churches, they're putting this solely on USD-457. So I would encourage the rest of the community to step forward and share in this endeavor if they so will. But I don't know if we should entertain a motion, or if we're split 3-3, we want to continue down, have more conversations and bring it back next meeting. It's really up to you guys.
Back next meeting, I don't know what that does to people's timelines, but give us an opportunity to make one with the entities in the community to see if we can bridge that. Maybe the 81,000 gap, split it, or take some approach. What would be, I think, really the crime here would be to have an opportunity before us to sustain daycare resources for the community, and not put to it the critical aspect that it is. It's a key part of our community and our ability to function as a community and to get teachers in here. So even though it's just a few slots, it's not just a few slots. It's part of the answer, part of the solution. At least the effort is. And so I would suggest that we table it and take another crack at communicating with other public entities in the community, lest we somehow take a vote and this effort dies on.
You know, I think nobody's gonna argue that how important the daycare is. I mean, I just would like to see it a little bit structured, a little bit different, so it's not solely the responsibility of the district. Like John said, maybe some other community partners can help step up.
Yeah, I mean, there's 70 some slots in there. Not every one of those kids is a kid of an employee of USD-457. So if this daycare closes, it's going to affect multiple businesses and multiple entities. Yet it's kind of being rested on the shoulders of USD-457. So I would like to see the community step up, whatever that looks like, asking them to, and we'll table it till next meeting, and maybe this will look different by the time we get to next meeting.
From district staff, what information would you like us to bring back?
The other public entity said. I mean, I think it's incumbent on board members to go have some key conversations in this interim as well, but somehow we've got to come back together and say, okay, whether, I mean, and just have some candid conversations. I don't know that we have to have a report on every conversation, but there may be some very real impediments in other organizations. But no, I don't know what the answer would be to you, staff, except that if you can figure out ways to facilitate some of those conversations in the interim here, I would encourage you. It's got to work. Whatever the idea is that sort of try to bridge a gap, it's got to work. And so it's got to work for food services. It's Gotta wait for the other entity.
They're requesting only food, so what do you want other entities to provide? Dawn and Jackie and Jennifer, what do you want to see from other entities? That would then say, okay, we'll enter into this partnership.
I think that capital, I would be more comfortable entering into this agreement if it looked more like St. Dominick's. So if the other entities can provide them capital to where we can have an agreement similar to the one we have in place, I would be more comfortable doing that. Because we wouldn't be using district dollars to fund a different entity at that point. We would be doing the exact same thing we're doing with St. Dominick's.
But you understand that St. Dominic's and St. Mary's are totally private. They're totally private entities. This isn't a
But they're
private.
paying for their meals.
I get that, but they're private. You know, they're parochial private schools, so they're under very different rules and circumstances than any kind of services that provide to our general population. Because, I mean, we're all pretty aware that our general population is not a wealthy overall population, right?
But I guess.
Okay, so
I
your,
don't have to write.
I'm sorry, I went into like
you're
on a
good.
soapbox, but so your requirement would just be funding from any other entity, full funding or what kind of funding?
To me, I mean, I would like to see what interest we have from other ones. I'm not saying it has to be full funding, but I would like to see the community partner in this with the district, not just solely rest on the district to save an entity.
So there you go. I just wanted to give you some more clarity of what is being asked rather, because you've already approached several entities, so.
Sorry, I had a question about the meals for the school. So at St. Dominic's and there, I think you've answered it, but if they qualify for free and reduced lunch, do they get that there too? Okay.
Yeah. Because they're part of the USDA, I mean, parochial schools, private schools are able to apply for the program. As long as they have, like, my program agreement comes every year to the board. So they have to enter into the same program agreement that we do.
Are we at tabling at this point, or do you want to have some more?
Are you tabling?
I'm good tabling.
Okay, we've tabled it.
We really didn't give you a direction. I guess it's on us to do our research.
Well, and I mean, they put some, if they want to continue to look and maybe get somebody who knows that we're willing to partner, maybe other entities would step up. I mean, you never know.
I just know how long we've looked at this diamond in so many ways. There's gotta be another facet there that where we are today, coming together with a couple of conversations, just see if we can bridge the gap.
Childcare has definitely been an issue for the district.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll move on to new business. Business, the first item under new business is the Board of Education committee assignments. I have a sheet right here. I'm just gonna pass it up and down as we move on to the next item and we sign up for the committees that you'd like to serve on. Second one is Board of Education policy, EDC, security, safety, first read from Josh Guyman.
I'll try to be faster with this one. So I believe you all got a copy of the policy that were recommended. So during the negotiations process of this year, there was some concerns among some certified staff, teachers being involved in some physical altercations with students, some kids that maybe got overstimulated and violent with hitting and biting and things like that. So the negotiations team brought that to brought that to the table, and I think it was the decision at that time that really wasn't necessarily a negotiated issue because it really needed to be, and it needed to be more of a policy issue because it affected more than just the teachers. It affected paraprofessionals and other staff members, bus drivers, things like that. And so we had a policy that was in existence for quite some time. I think it went back to 2003, I believe it was. 2003. And so it's not been reviewed for quite a while. And so the recommendation was to have 2 administrators and 2 members from NEA kind of look at that policy and draft a different policy. So Jason Johnson as the negotiator and I were the 2 administrators that worked with Russ Tidwell and Amber Vigil. And we kind of looked at different policies that other districts had, and we kind of Frankensteined our policy based off of other policies, and that is I guess the policy that you all have in front of you now. Dr. Dominguez did send it to Jennifer Cunningham to review and vet, and so she gave us the thumbs up on that. Yes, sir.
Was the prior policy being followed, or was it just confusing?
Yeah, I think the prior policy was being followed. It was a lot, and I think a lot of it was outdated, and I think it was just updating it more than anything, Mark, was my understanding.
What other districts did you look at for policy?
John, I can't answer that. I honestly don't remember. I was kind of called in the 8th hour to be a part of that. I know that Russ had some, and I know that Jason had some that he pulled, but I couldn't tell you. Russ was going to be here tonight to help in this process, but he had another obligation, so he couldn't be here. So I apologize. I can get that information for you though, if you want, before the next, yeah.
We got any questions for Josh? Any questions about the board policy that they presented us?
And this is a first read on.
This will be a first read, yep, so it'll be on the consent agenda at the next meeting, unless there's injury issues. And I will, I'll get that answer for you and I'll put it in a minute with Mike, John. Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Just in reading through it, it's just very cursory from a non-legal person, but I just want to be sure that there's a high level of comfort with the staff that it's understandable. You know, because there are reporting requirements if something is illegal, but not everybody knows whether it's illegal or not. And or a felony, or I mean, there's criteria in there. So obviously there's some training involved that will be involved in this policy as well.
Yeah, and I think the administrators are going to have conversations with teachers to kind of talk about that. We try really hard when there is if there's a felony or misdemeanor that's committed on campus to get our SROs involved with that. I mean, obviously we don't have an SRO in every building, but we have an SRO assigned to every building. And so if there's something like that comes up, then they're called and they are involved in that process as well. And you know, whenever there's any kind of a physical altercation, whether that be student to student, staff to student, or student to staff, or whatever that looks like, you know, they always have the opportunity to press charges if they would like to do that. And we have some staff that will do that and other staff that they won't. So.
It's kind of off the topic of this policy, but do we have a policy in reverse of this? I know we did have a situation where we had to staff.
In reverse of this.
Does this protect students and staff, or
Or
just
students?
which direction?
Oh, like staff towards students.
We did have an incident.
Yeah, so that to me, that would be, and Jennifer, I may need to lean on your legal expertise here, but to me, that would be a crime at that point. And so I think that would take over the policy. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, because it becomes a legal issue. And so that would override any policy that we would have.
And then cameras. So the policy mentions that there are cameras in certain places and just be aware of that. I think is the purpose of that statement in the policy. So I think that's probably that simple. That usability, I mean, our ability to use footage on those security cameras that are there to keep everyone safe and that policy essentially declares that, and that is resources available.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's my understanding. That's the way I interpret that. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up will be roof insurance claims. Shane.
It's only because I asked it, do I know?
You guys have a copy of this in your packet or not? Colleen and I kind of put together a quick timeline or kind of the process that we've gone through. So over the course of this last year since I've been here, we've been doing trying to do our due diligence on assessing our roofs and our conditions of our roofs. And so Colleen obviously did a lot of work on the long range planning before I got here. I kind of jumped into the middle of that and tried to take a hold of it and try to figure out kind of where we are with the roofs. Dr. Dominguez had a contact with the North Point Consulting, and you'll hear from them a little bit later here. But we just kind of wanted to walk through kind of our process to this point, kind of the direction we've been given and what we've attempted to do here. So December 7th, 8th, North Point came out and did an assessment of the roofs. Their report on January 10th showed that we had a fair amount of damage and that we should probably take a step further and kind of see where that would go. At that point, they sent us a contract. We sent it over to Jennifer Cunningham for her thoughts and ideas on it. And those thoughts again kind of went to, hey, let's go back to Iron Insurance, our partner there, and see what that process is. If we were going to file a claim, if we thought that roof damage was extensive enough. So we did that on February 8th. And then after that meeting, it was determined, let's bring in a local contractor. So I reached out to Diamond Roofing, which is one of our contractors here in Garden City. And they went out and did an independent inspection of several buildings. And I kind of laid out, hey, let's go. We went to kind of east, west, north, south, just kind of around trying to see if and where we had damage. And so they went out on April 4th, did their inspection of 5 buildings and came back with a report and gave us an idea that, hey, yeah, we feel like there's some damage out there. We'll probably need to investigate that further or even, file that claim. And so we met as a staff and thought that we had enough to file a claim. And so we met with Iron Insurance again and kind of went down that path. I laid out through Diamond's report. I kind of lined up, kind of made a geographical storm of a path, if you will. I started at Edith Sharm, which seems to be our worst roof, and kind of if you drew a line, say to the high school, and kind of took that path. And so I kind of laid out, I think there were 9 buildings that we went through and inspected, but kind of on that geographical line, if you will. At the same time, we were kind of going down the path of looking at getting a second option in here. As North Point told us, we had to take quite some extensive damage and I need to take a look. So we found Square Contractors out of Kansas City. He's also here this evening and we'll speak to you. And so then May 2nd, we met with the EMC, which is our claims provider. We met with them. We inspected the roofs, myself, Trent, and Gustavo with EMC. We walked those 9 roofs. And then on May 19th, we've got a letter back denying our claim. And so we sent that to Jennifer. She reviewed it. We sat down with her, kind of figured out what our next steps were. At that point, Jennifer had reviewed the Square Contractors Agreement and North Point's agreement. And then we kind of agreed as a staff to bring them both into you all for their presentations going forward. So,
Any questions on the process yet before we have both come up? So North Point will go first to kind of talk about their resources and what they can provide the district. And then we have Square that will be here to provide a presentation on what their services are. And then Jennifer will kind of share her recommendations.
Shane, on these 9 schools, do you think they're all tied to the same storm event?
It's hard to tell. You can tell from the damage on the roof, some of it's a little older, some of it's a little newer. So, and that's kind of what John was saying as well.
And so do you have an idea? Do you have a specific storm that that this claim was tied to?
I have 3 different dates originally. I don't have those dates off of the top of my head, but we did put those in the claim as well.
What was the reason that the claim was denied?
Yeah, I mean, they have copies of that.
Previous.
Yeah. There were 2 other claims that were paid out by EMC or Iron Insurance. One in 2008 on a lot of these roofs. And then Georgia Matthews had some wind damage in October of 2017. And there were some monies paid out for that wind damage. And so I think in short, and Trent can speak to it as well, I think Gustavo, he had a hard time distinguishing, whether or not it was something that was paid for in 2008 and or he talked a lot about a kind of a cosmetic damage. Sometimes you can have a hailstorm go through, but it doesn't destroy the roof to the point where it constitutes a claim or payment, but can cause some cosmetic damage. And so I think therein lies maybe the.
Yeah, so you
what
have
Trent
a
was headed with
cosmetic
it.
exclusion on there, so if the functionality of the roof isn't damaged, it's, a lot of these carriers are going to that. There's a cosmetic exclusion. I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but EMC, the carrier that we represent, on all the roofs, all their school districts, they have that.
So when you say cosmetic, so just an aesthetics thing, that isn't covered, but if the roof has damage where it's compromised from a watertight standpoint, then it's covered. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and how Gustavo explained it, what I mean, and I believe Shane was there, it has to crack the membrane on the back side of the roof. And these 2 gentlemen right here with the roofing contractors can probably speak to that a little bit better than I can, but there's a part on the, these are commercial grade, they're not residential, so obviously they're thicker and more apt to extreme weather. So a pea-sized hull of them would have damaged it. Now might have granular loss, might have a little wear and tear, but functionality of the roof itself wouldn't be. So the functionality of the roof itself wouldn't be damaged, so.
So did we have any leaks?
Did we have leaks? Yes, we do have leaks.
So what Shane and Colleen were talking about it was based off of April 22nd is what we have on our what we turned in, because there has to be a trigger for the claim to happen. So we went back to April 22nd of last year, and based off of that, they came back and said there was some damage, but they couldn't tell if it was, like Shane says, previous or to that. And a lot of it was more cosmetic, it wasn't. And then something that the adjuster likes to do when the roofing contractor is there is take a sample of the spot. If you see a spot, they'll take a 4-inch by 4-inch section and say, hey, this is broke on the backside, or no, it's not. This is what the leaking is from, or no, it's not. And then if that one hits, they move to a different section of the roof, try that one, kind of go from there.
Sort of random sampling.
It's not random. They want you to tell us where to pick. So as me, Shane and Gustavo were there, you know, we looked at some spots. But we didn't, as I was there, we didn't pull full samples.
So we obviously pay a premium for insurance. We have damaged roofs, but not damaged enough to have a claim. How do we get in a position, just talking through this, to where we're paying a premium, and if we do have an event, we actually can
Yeah, so
just file a claim and get our roof fixed, opposed to just having to pay for that out of pocket?
yeah, so like we told Shane and Colleen, you know, we're here to serve you. So however you want to go from here, it's our job to help you guys through this. So if you want us to hire team up and hire an independent engineer, or independent adjuster to get a second opinion, we're more than happy to provide that and look into that with you. So now at the end of the day, we have to meet with Gustavo, and he would have to probably go to his boss and say, hey, what's the next step? This is what we're seeing. We would make that decision then.
So if there's leaks, we obviously have damage that needs fixed. It's just.
Determining whether or not it's normal wear and tear versus weather
Damage
related.
due to weather. So like the 5 inches that we got the other day on our flat roof buildings. How do we know if, so let's say that it got damaged during that storm. Can we file for that damage and then is that all?
Flooding is excluded.
Oh, I forgot that. Yes,
So
I'm sorry.
flooding, no, but yep. So, we brought and we met with Shane and Colleen, and we showed, and that's the hard part, is seeing did they go back and did they fix it? You know, EMC paid out close to $2 million in 2008. Do they go back and fix the cosmetics part of it? And that's where we would have to figure out and get with the different contractors and say, hey, did you fix this at this time, or did we not fix it at that time? Because some of it might be going back to that 2008 storm that was really big. Some of it might be sooner, and we just have to figure it out. Say they did fix it and we still have those marks. Well, that might be a game changer.
Would we have receipts or payments for roof repairs?
Yep, we do.
Yeah, we
What
do.
was your question, John? I'm talking about if we fixed the roof or didn't fix the roof. I said there probably should have been a trail of receipts.
Okay, I just didn't hear what you said. So can you clarify, who's EMCing Gustavo?
Yep. So EMC is a carrier that we represent at Iron Insurance. So Iron Insurance is, as you guys know, formerly Keller Leopold, with roots here since 1943. We went through a merger in 2022, January. So we changed our name from Keller Leopold, to Iron Insurance when we merged. EMC is, as you know, we represent a number of different carriers, over 100. EMC is based out of Des Moines, Iowa. They have a big branch in Wichita, Kansas. Gustavo is a local adjuster. I believe he's out of Jetmore, Kansas, if I'm not mistaken. And he covers all the Western Division. Schools, municipalities, contractors. I mean, it's not just one size fit all with him. He covers, I believe, the western half of the state. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Good evening. My name is Adam Brenner, the president and owner of North Point Claims Service. Sarah Duran, he's my head estimator in all things young millennial. If your iPhone should happen to break while we're talking, let Eric know, he'll fix it for you. I hope everyone had some coffee. I'm going to try to talk about the world's most boring topic in the entire world, and then not have everybody fall asleep at 7:30 at night, which is insurance. Nobody wants to talk about insurance, but it's very, very important. Is it a problem if I walk around? It's been a long day, so I do better talking around moving. I'd rather be able to see all of you. I represent school districts. I represent counties. I represent insurance companies. But I am a public insurance adjuster by license. My job by license makes me automatically appear to be adversarial to insurance companies. But I find it really striking that insurance companies, some of the largest insurance companies in the world, and their defense lawyers actually hire me to go represent insurance companies to ensure that claims are properly and fairly adjudicated and that they're settled outside of court. I've represented Lloyd's of London. I represented AIG being the largest insurance company in the United States. There's 3 people that can argue insurance claims. No matter what anybody tells you, there's 3 people that can do it. One is the insured. That would be all of you as a member of the district. You guys, as we talked about, y'all filed your claim. Y'all are the insured and you attempted to negotiate that. The other person that can argue your insurance claim would be a lawyer. The reason for that is they're going to have to read and interpret a contract, and they're going to have to make a determination about that question that you asked about date of loss. Date of loss is defined very clearly as a coverage issue. Determining and figuring out when a date of loss exists is entirely a coverage related function. It determines which policy period coverage will be applied in. And this counts whether it's a homeowner's claim or a commercial policy claim or any other kind of claim. So if anyone tells you that they're going to help you argue date of loss, or they're going to argue cosmetic exclusion, which your agent or broker cited, those are specific policy coverages, and you need to have an insurance license in a given state to be able to do that. And I have such that license. Also, when you're handling a claim, you need to be impartial. I have nothing to do with construction. I am 100% an insurance nerd. I never get asked to dinners. Nobody here is going to call me at the end of the day and ask me to come to your corporate event or party because nobody wants to talk about insurance. But I want to talk to you about why this is important to you as a district. Let me give you an example. Again, I represent districts across Texas, Oklahoma. I go wherever my clients are. I have a home in Dallas. I've not been there in a while, but they tell me it's nice. I love being out and working and doing what I do. One of that is date of loss that y'all filed, as you mentioned, was in, I believe it was April, or the 4/2/22. I sent Eric up here, as I do with any time we want to assess and evaluate a school. The first things we look for are existence of current damage or hail. One of the questions that was asked, sorry if I was so close to you there.
Okay.
One of the questions that was asked, well, how do we know that when this thing even occurred, right? Well, everyone has a home. Everyone's had a hailstorm. It's Kansas. These things happen. When hail hits a given surface, it removes an oxidization layer off of it. And that leaves a telltale mark of when that oxidization leaves. When the oxidization leaves that surface, that's called spatter, S-P-A-T-T-E-R. I hear all the time people call it splatter. That's not what it is. It's spatter. That oxidization layer that's been removed reoxidizes. And given where that surface is, it depends on the time it takes for it to reoxidize. So something sitting in a dark, on the dark backside of a building that's not exposed to sunlight and wind may take longer to reoxidize than, say, something that's been sitting out in the sun with wind on it every day. Generally speaking, that lasts about 2 years. When you guys filed a claim, and understand this, and it doesn't, I want to speak frankly with you because what I think is important is that you get the fullness of information so that you all can make the best decision. I just want to present to you all what are facts. All of my schools, and I've represented over 50 different schools. The last school that called me 6 weeks ago after an EF3 tornado devastated the entire school district. For the last 6 weeks, I have been trying to get an entire school district back up and running. Interestingly enough, we had our safe room, first time in Oklahoma history since Moore, Oklahoma. An actual safe room was impacted by an EF3 tornado. And it has been my job to work with that board and that superintendent to get school open, and hopefully we can do that by August 8th. I am an expert in what I do because this is all that I do. School claims are very large, they're very complicated, and there's a lot of details because you have a lot of building surface. And we have very large, complicated policies. Let me get down to brass taxes and explain a couple things to you. As was alluded and correct, you guys filed a claim in 2008. You guys were, I think, reimbursed something like $1,040,000 in 2000 from a 2008 claim. That's $1 million. Keep that in mind. You guys, in 2017, you filed a claim. You were paid $36,000. Okay, so you guys have been paid $1 million, call it $50,000. Y'all been with EMC for a very, very, very long time. I looked just a moment ago at the amount of premiums that you all have paid EMC. Y'all paid $303,000 every single year. And as I drove past your school today, I see a roof that's being installed that had a modified bitumen roof surface on it that somebody believed had damage that's cosmetic in nature. I don't know, most people have a composition shingle on their roof, 3-tab architectural, average residential shingles. Everyone's familiar with that. Those granular surfaces are applied in the factory for a reason. And they're applied so that they can stop the UV rays from destroying the actual material of the underlying matting of that shingle. The same exact condition exists on a modified bitumen roof surface. There's an engineering company called Hague Engineering. Hague Engineering is located in Dallas, Texas. The first time that the cosmetic exclusion came up was provided by Hague Engineering, a company that, oddly enough, got its start from some insurance executives. But they developed what was called a CP 1036-1012 form. And insurance companies all over the country where I work, they don't want to have to go to departments of insurance and get these forms and then send them to legal and then have them reviewed by legal. So where do I go to get my insurance forms? Because I want to sell them. They go to these ISO forms. And it's Insurance Standards Office. You can go look at the bottom. Here, can you pull up your denial letter, please? I'd like to reference for you a problem that I see throughout. I'm not critical of an insurance industry. I'm not pro public adjuster. I'm a neutral. That's why I can sit in federal court and raise my right hand and go through a voir dire and be determined to be a qualified, competent expert in federal and state court in multiple venues. Because when a judge hears my resume and they see that I'm not impartial and that my knowledge is greater than that of a layman, that I can explain to a jury a series of facts, there's weight to that. I don't get that weight by being a partisan. I get that weight by presenting fair and honest facts. I've told countless insurance companies, if they oppose me, hire whoever you want. Your experts are going to come back and agree with me, I guarantee it. Because my job is not to get my clients into litigation. Just in school districts, in the last 3 years, I've settled over $85 million in school insurance claims with 2 engineering inspections, 0 arbitrations, 0 appraisals, and 0 litigation. If you knew anything about my industry, that is absolutely unheard of. The reason that I do that is that we're fact-based. If my clients don't have damage that's not covered under a policy, I'm the first person to raise my hand and say, this is not covered under your policy. I hate that for you, but you're going to have to pay for it yourself. But I'm not going to put my reputation as I stand there in the courtroom and testify on the line and have a deposition come back and kick me in the butt because I presented a report on behalf of a client that put me in a prejudicial position long-term for the benefit of one single client, if that makes sense. Well, I say that to say this. What I care about is honest, accurate, ethical claims handling. Period. That's it. End of stop. I took a look at this letter, and as you're aware, I was aware that y'all had the claim. I was unaware that y'all had filed the claim. But when I read it, I got to tell you, if y'all haven't figured out, I'm pretty passionate about my clients. I care that my school district in Oklahoma is trying to get students back by August 8th. And I have to argue with an insurance company to get them money to get repairs done. And they don't seem to care that we have school that starts August 8th, right? I don't want to see you guys put in a prejudice or a litigious position. Let me go through some of this, the basic fact pattern. And I want to make sense of something to you. You guys have paid EMC $4.5 million in premiums, roughly, just for property. Assuming, I know you've had coverage of them since 2008, right? But you've recovered $1,076,000. Yet you were entitled to a lot more. In 2008, there was no such thing as a CP 1036-1012 form. A CP 1036-1012 form is a standard ISO cosmetic exclusion form. And the 1012 denotes that that form came out in October of 2012. So there's no way that that form existed on your policy in 2008. This is very important for you to follow what I'm saying here in just a minute. When I read the letter, it drives me nuts to read this letter. I'm reading directly from the EMC document. He cites, please refer to form CP 1036-1012, where it states, we will not pay for loss or damage caused by or resulting from any of the following: wear and tear, rust or other corrosion, decay, deterioration, hidden or latent defect, or any quality in property that causes it to damage or destroy itself, settling, cracking, shrinking, expansion, nesting, or infestation. Here's my point. That entire document that was reflected in the letter that you all received is not even the right form. I've testified in court as an expert on policy, and your adjuster couldn't even see to it to give you the right form when he denied your claim. I've been out to multiple of your schools. I've personally spent thousands of dollars of my own money, not knowing if y'all were going to hire me or not. I didn't care. That's my job. Just to come figure out if you even had a claim. My intent, my hope at the very beginning was to do a full and complete assessment, complete with meteorological data, complete with photos analysis, complete with hail analysis. I would have retained engineers if we needed it, but I don't need an engineer to tell me. And I have to argue against the engineers all the time. They're the opposing expert against me in court all the time. I ask anybody to go ask any engineer, where in engineering school, where is it? I have asked in deposition because I help the attorneys write the questions. Where in the world is a class on hail damage to a modified bitumen roof surface? Because I want to go to that class. I'm going to sign up at that college and I'm going to take that class so I can testify in court about that class over and over and over, and I'll add it to the bottom of my resume. But I can't do that. The engineers that come out are civil engineers. They build roads, they build bridges. I've had petroleum engineers try to argue with me. Here's another interesting fact. Insurance companies use the same engineering firms over and over and over and over again. Now I wonder why that might be. The engineers that I use are retained by both sides, just like I am, because I want an impartial opinion. If I'm wrong, I want to be told I'm wrong. I don't want to tell my client to go pursue something that we're wrong about. What does cosmetic mean? I have looked at y'all's schools. Y'all have some of the most hail damaged roof surfaces I've ever seen. Please, letter. Off the top of your head, who knows how many facilities that you have across your entire district?
15.
It's over 20. I mean, every building. How many entire buildings do you have? 22? All right, they looked at Georgia Matthews, Buffalo Jones, Abe, Horace, Jenny, J.A., Gertrude, Florence, and the high school. That's 9. Why would your insurance company not complete a complete and thorough, fair assessment of your insurance claim? As they cite in the letter, we just didn't see anything out there. Well, I'm lost because I flew up here early today and walked again to even after Eric has already gone and walked all the buildings. I walked again just to make sure. Not only did I see hail spatter, I see hail damage. I see dents. I looked at your air conditioning units and I found the dates of manufacturer. I pulled weather data. I pulled satellite images. I know when all of your roofs were installed. I know when the perimeter metal flashings were put on. So I know exactly when dents existed and when they couldn't have existed. And I find it interesting. I mean, it was the most mind-blowing thing in the world to me that in this letter, they cited that we did see some damage, but it was from 2008 or 2023, or excuse me, from the prior claim in 17. Well, I'm lost as to how that can be, because you can't have your cake and eat it too. That's a lesson I've learned the hard way in life. How in the world, what was the school with the red roof we were just talking a moment ago? Buffalo. I've seen millions and millions and millions and millions of square footage of metal roof surfacing. Again, I work all over the country, hired by insurance company lawyers and by plaintiff lawyers to make sure facts are facts. Trust me, I've never seen a building with that much hail damage. So then I go back and I asked prior to this meeting, let's take a look at what was paid on the prior loss. $1,040,000. That was it. So if that letter is accurate, then what I'm hearing is you either completely screwed up the 2008 claim, or you're totally missing damage right now. But that's impossible for you to do both. And somehow there's air conditioning units on it that were installed in May of 2021 that have hail damage on it. Y'all paid for it. Y'all asked your taxpayers through a bond to go buy new air conditioning units because you needed it. Y'all have leaks everywhere. I know you do, because I see half the reason for all of your leaks. There's hail damage that is not cosmetic at all. It's very much functional all over the entire district. Some of your metals are hit so badly that the lap seams are failing. But instead of the insurance company even attempting to investigate or even attempting to go to all the other campuses, it's so hot out here, I guess we're just going to call it a day and grab a Gatorade, right? I mean, I don't know, but you can't have it both ways. All I'm asking is this. I've taken a look at your prior claims. Y'all hired a company in 2017 thereabouts there, out of Duluth or somewhere out of Minnesota. I don't know what happened in that situation, because clearly there's some roofs that would have afforded more than a repair, and a claim should have been pursued at that time. Let me talk about some of the issues that y'all have. My job is quasi-legal. There are certain states where, again, I can read and interpret policy. Generally speaking, that's reserved for lawyers, which is why I make the point that you need a license to do what I do. In Texas, as an example, my home license, I can read and interpret policy. I send a letter of representation on behalf of my clients. It sounds a lot like a lawyer. I'll get on the phone with your insurance company and I'll negotiate millions of dollars on your behalf. That sounds a lot like a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm not here to provide legal advice. It's a couple of questions that I would encourage you to ask your attorney. First is, what's the statute of limitations on a breach of contract tort in the state of Kansas? I will let you know that I run everything I do by lawyers all the time. I'm aware of that answer. You can ask your own legal counsel. The next question is, what is the standard for bad faith in the state of Kansas as it relates to insurance claims? I'll just tell you that in many a conversation with a lawyer in Kansas, specifically regarding other clients that I have in Kansas, I've represented clients all over the country. There is no bad faith statute, according to the lawyers that I've discussed on my other clients. So let me ask you a question. If I were to engage in my contract with you, right, and then I just didn't do anything, would that be cool? Probably not. But if I acted in bad faith, wouldn't you like the ability to sue me? Most districts that I talk to, most superintendents I talk to have no idea that they generally don't have that right of action or cause of action. That generally deals with plan groups. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you advice on that, but ask your legal counsel about that. One of my concerns, though, is that you have older claims that were grossly underfunded. I think that the prudent piece of action would be to assess some of those older claims. The problem with reopening some of those claims, again, as the letter stated, all I'm doing is saying, EMC, y'all told me that y'all came out, y'all took a look, you didn't find anything. You think it's from 2008. Great. You think it's from 2017. Well, great. Show me what you did in 2008 and 2017, because last time I checked, Garden City paid you policy premiums that year. And were they properly and accurately and quantifiably covered for the damages at that time, or did y'all miss it at that time? And now conveniently, when we're way down here and we finally figure out the light bulb finally comes on, perhaps some of our legal remedies have been exhausted. So I don't have to help remedy that. Now, as I go about doing what I do, it's important. Every single one of my clients, I have clients that are individual billionaires with property like blow your mind. I have individual school teachers. I have my clients run the gamut. I treat everybody the same. Everybody the same. But I do give a little extra something for my schools. I worked 22 years in the United States Army. I was in law enforcement for 13 years before I did it. Insurance has been my family business. This is all I've ever done. Is law enforcement, the military, and insurance. I was doing insurance work before I did those fields. So it's nice to be back home and in my wheelhouse. Here's what I'll leave you with. The answers to your questions, and I'm sure you have a lot, because I don't know. Y'all have a lot of issues because things were not addressed appropriately the first time, and they weren't addressed appropriately the second time. But I would ask you, as you sit here and evaluate going forward, I can't think of anybody that I know of that would buy $1 million house and not buy a real estate agent. Sometimes having an agent or a broker to help in the actual purchase, a person that actually represents you. My clients are paid by my clients. I don't earn a commission from somebody else. Think about that. Get somebody to look at things on your behalf. Contractors, I work with a lot of them. I'm not disparaging, but they're in sales. They want to sell something. I'm in a weird spot where I don't sell anything but my brain and my ability to handle insurance. And that's hard for people to wrap their heads around because I can't show you a shiny object or a trinket and say, this is what I'll get you. What I can say is, I'm not going to waste my time if I don't think I can get money for you. Otherwise, I don't get paid. I work off contingents. So the point of that story is, you guys really do need to start taking a look at some of these issues. They are affecting your maintenance issues long-term. Y'all have roofs that really need to be replaced. Y'all are going to have leaks. If y'all have anything less than 1,000 leaks in this district, I'd be surprised. And that's just on the schools that I've seen. But it's always sad to me, and I tell my clients this. If I paid $4.5 million in insurance premium, and I had an actual claim for an actual covered peril that I actually was owed money for pursuant to that insurance policy, why in the world should I ever ask the taxpayers of my city to come in and buy or fix or repair a roof when I paid for something in the first place not to deal with it? If I put a position out that said, and there are many, I know my competitors well, they're going to tell you, hey, oh, your claim's worth $25 million. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. They'd be lying to you. There are so many defenses that I see that EMC has against this claim, but I also see where EMC made a lot of errors. A lot of times, let me cover this so I'm really clear about it. Insurance adjusters have faults, just like all of us. And they get busy. And they get hot and they get tired when they're looking at stuff on a roof. I do it, everybody else does it. But the insurance claims are big. And big claims, you know, I used to be a task force officer with the DEA. We had a little saying, little claim or little cases, little problems. No cases, no problems. Big cases, big problems. There's a lot going on your roof system. Y'all have a lot going on. There's a lot of details that have to be put together. All of the details that have to be put together are more than scope related. Anyone can go put together a scope. Diamond Roofing. I've been working with them in Buckland, dealing with Kerm, the other competitor of y'all's insurance plan. It's frustrating for me on my end because what I see quite often on insurance affiliated programs is that they try to reduce their expenses. And they do that by hiring adjusters that have lower billable hourly rate. For someone like myself to show up, it's $350 an hour, and I'm not showing up for less than that. If an insurance company hires and they pay my rate, but they pay my rate when they realize they have a big old stinking problem. If they can get an adjuster for $75 an hour who can't even draft a letter telling you what the cause of your exclusion is correctly. I mean, I have written many a denial letter. I still do work for insurance companies today. I just wrote a denial letter and a release on behalf of an insurance company last week. I don't get the form wrong. That is straight up language from a CP 1030 form, completely different form. And anybody that handles claims of this size should know that inside and out of their head, or else they shouldn't be here. There's no way they should have allowed for your air conditioning units that have hail damage. The CP 1036 form has two sections. There's Alpha and Bravo. The first section highlights what exactly is the definition of cosmetic damage. And the CP 1036 section Alpha states that it's damage which is likely over a period of time to reduce the water shedding ability or the lifespan of the roof surfacing. That is the section A, almost verbatim. Section B makes an RCV policy become an ACV policy after a certain time. Usually it's 15 years or more. That's a standard CP 1036, 1012. When granular surface loss is displaced and dislodged from that roof and sun starts beating down on that roof, it's inherently got damage over a period of time that is degrading the water shedding capability of the roof. And it's ruined the lifespan of the roof. You bought the contract, you paid for the policy. In my opinion, you should seek a remedy under a place that you purchased a policy. I know I have thrown a bunch of really, really confusing, what in the world did this guy just say stuff at you? Insurance is very complicated very quickly. Looking at a little piece of hail on a roof in 2 seconds becomes a coverage question that requires a license to be able to discuss it. I don't need to go hire an engineer to tell me if something's functional. Doing that costs you money. I then go to my school clients. I go to anybody clients, right? Because I said, whether it's the school teachers I represent, the nurses I represent, I don't want them to spend any money to fight their insurance company, nor would I want some of the billionaires that I work for, and they don't care how much I spend. I still am not going to recommend that they go fight that. But if you're going to hire engineers, you need to be sure that you hire one that's competent and fair and that can appropriately value something, and that their list of clients is not a bunch of folks that work for only and exclusively insurance companies. That question is very simple. If a public adjuster called and hired you, would you go work for a public adjuster? And I've had multiple engineering firms tell me no. Many of the insurance companies, Invista Forensics is hired routinely by a company called Sedgwick. Sedgwick is a third-party administrator who routinely handles claims for insurance companies. They only do claims for insurance companies. So when an insurance company hires Sedgwick, Sedgwick needs an engineer. They call their subsidiary company Invista Forensics, who then comes out, and you would not believe the amount of reports that I have found that are spot on match. MKA, Madsen Neppers, they're frequently used in the state of Kansas. I represent them all in Salina, Kansas. They flat out put on their report that there was no rain whatsoever in this roof system. I happen to be a pilot. I'm an instrument rated pilot. I read the weather report before I landed the airplane to go inspect the roof. I know exactly where the meteorological data came from because I had to pull it to land. I could clearly see that it rained, and the engineer even cited it in his first report. And then on the second report, when I brought up the fact that the roof was made wetted by rain, I get a supplement report that said no rain occurred. Except that engineer forgot that little darn detail that I happen to know how to read a pilot's weather report, and he happened to throw that in my report. Hire experts that know what they're doing. Pay attention to some of these things and think about that math, folks. $303,000 y'all pay annually in premium. $4.5 million y'all paid in premium. Just in my simple math, just on the building coverage, doesn't include any other coverages. Y'all recovered $1 million. The claim in 08, if it's as bad as I think it was, that should have been $10 million. If all coverages were applied across all of those three losses, y'all have a $17-20 million claim. How do I come to those figures? I represent over 40 different school districts as I sit here today. All my office does is write estimates for school districts. I know exactly. I work with any contractor any school wants to work with. I work with CMs, construction managers, architects. I know the whole process. You want to go to bid, we go to bid. I don't want to go to bid. There's programs certain states offer to do that. I know all of them. I work with anybody. But you got to make sure it's funded correctly. You've got to make sure the scope is correct. You've got to make sure your claim is correct. I yield my time and I ask if there's any questions. I try to keep it lively when I talk about insurance. Otherwise, y'all have been asleep. Talking about CP 1036 forms.
About spatter matters.
As long as you got something out of that lecture for today, that's good. Spatter is important. Spatter means time. Do you remember how long it lasts?
2 years.
2 years, and that depends on where it's at. If there are no further questions, I've sent my contract previously. I'm happy to do any markups. I do the same thing with every contract with every school district. I always send them a Word form. Anybody in business generally would think that's a terrible idea. I do it on purpose. I don't care. Mark up my contract. I just want to be in compliance with state law. I work in multiple states. I can't hire lawyers every 2 seconds to revise my contracts. But the contract that I've sent, I've have reviewed, and to the best of my knowledge, we're in compliance. But again, happy to change that in any way. I always put my fee on my contract at 10%. I tell every single school, if I have to reduce my fee for you to get paid, I'll reduce my fee. I've given your superintendent a list of every single one of my clients. I trust and ask that you don't listen to anything that I say or take anything that I said with anything other than a grain of salt. Do the due diligence. I'll give you a list of every single client I've ever worked with. And if any one of them tells you that it was bad news to hire me, then don't hire me. It's that simple. There's no skin off my back. But I take care of my schools and I take care of my clients. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
That, 5 minutes. Break. Is that what you're after? Yes.
presenter is Todd Morris. He's with Square out of Kansas City, Missouri. So he'll go ahead and come talk to you about his company and what resources he has to represent the district.
Evening.
Hi, guys. I'll try to be quicker than that. I own a company called Square Contractors. And we're what I said, we're contractors. And we focus specifically on storm-related events. Right now, we've been a part of a little over $140 million worth of insurance related roof claims. I've been in construction since I was 8 years old as a farm kid, and since I got out of college after that. Been doing this over 30 years, so I'll take myself that much. Anyway, I agree that your roofs have a lot of damage on them. I also agree that if you had claims in 2008 and so on, that they weren't handled very well. That's what we do. For a little while, I was an insurance adjuster. And nearly every training meeting that I went to on major catastrophic event, at some point they would say, if you hear the words public adjuster, immediately stop what you're doing, turn it over to legal. So that's why we consult, and that's why we're contractors, and that's why I have a whole network of other people that if it's necessary that I connect you with, including public adjusters, attorneys, engineers, and so on. What we specialize in, and the reason why so many insurance adjusters actually call us, is because while they understand insurance, they've never built anything before. They might know that's paint and drywall, but what's behind that drywall, they don't know. They've never seen it. On a roof, they might recognize that this is modified bitumen, or this is a standing seam, or this is an SPF roof. But beyond that, they don't know how it got there. They don't know what the city codes are. They don't know where you buy it and what it costs. They have Xactimate, which if you know how to use it properly, does a decent job. And I use it all the time myself, but you really have to understand it. You have to know the difference between a 24 gauge and a 26 gauge panel. You have to know those things. You have to know what equipment you need and where to rent it and what it costs. And you got to know how to build something. And that's where we come in. So in the beginning, that knowledge is useful in establishing a proper scope so that you know that not only do you have everything that was damaged included, but you also have everything to get that repair made included. And then if you hire us, there's 2 contracts before you. You can hire us as general contractors, which we're licensed general contractors in the state of Kansas, in which time we will, after the claim is over, we will hire local people to help take care of it. We're probably not bringing people out of Kansas City or Arkansas unless it's absolutely necessary. I know somebody mentioned Diamond Roofing earlier. I know those guys, they're great. Roof Masters is here. I think you're using them right now. Roof Masters is great. We consult for other contractors every day of the week. And consequently, when you're on the roofs of every roof that every roof they've almost ever installed, you get to see whether they're good or bad, Everybody can show you 3 good jobs they did, but can they show, when you look at all of them, you get to know. And so we can recommend the right people. If you hire us as
as the GC, then we'll handle all those details. Kyle, who's with me, is handling a private college in Seward, Nebraska right now. Kyle, you've been working on that for just over a year, getting all the details, making sure that the light poles are there, that they got the right window, that they didn't damage the lawn. It's about a year so far?
Yeah, about a year.
Somebody has to handle all those details. If you hire us as a consultant, we will still help you with those, but I'm limited in because I'm not the contractor involved. I'm limited if somebody's not performing the way they should or whatever, what I can do about it. But I will make recommendations to you. Here's the people I would recommend. Here's why I would recommend them, and walk through that process. If you hire us as the GC, though, we take care of all those details. And when the lawn got messed up, you know, that's on us to make sure that it's fixed. It's not your maintenance department. They're already, I'm guessing, as busy as they can stand to be. So we take care of all that. We understand it from the construction side. If there becomes a matter of their policy issue, then we'll bring in other members of our network to help you handle that. That's simple. Any questions?
It's really called spatter.
It is called spatter. Yeah, so whatever you need. And like I say, if even if it would happen to go legal, I get hired by attorneys all the time to testify and do all that stuff. They're part of our network that I can refer to.
How are you, you talked to us about how to be compliant with state statutory procurement rules in regard to hiring contractors.
Yeah, that's where you come into a little bit of a issue because most schools they think they have to do the 3-bid thing. And in doing the 3-bid thing, what that ensures is that you save the insurance company money and not necessarily that you get the best quality. But my attorneys tell me that in the state of Kansas, when you have a catastrophic event, like some of these have been, and when you're not spending public money, you're spending insurance money, you have the ability to set that aside if you choose.
So Colleen, if we were to file an insurance claim, the cost of the work was, we had to put some of our own dollars into it to claim the reimbursement dollars received from insurance didn't cover the full cost of the work. Are we bound to follow the state procurement process to hire contractors at that point? If part of the funds for the project are coming out of our pocket?
Well, before we go there, if you'll read the agreement that we agree to do whatever work the insurance company says needs to be done for whatever they say it should cost.
Right.
So other than your deductible, you shouldn't have any money.
But don't you guys also propose a fee that your insurance, I would call it, maybe probably using the wrong terminology here, but the adjuster fee?
If you hire us as a consultant, then we take a percentage of the insurance.
Okay. But that doesn't apply when you're hired as a contractor?
No, it's one or the other.
Okay.
So in either case, you should only be worrying about your deductible.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, you understand it too, Colleen?
I
I
didn't
thought-
follow your question all the way, Andy, so
Sorry,
I'm sorry,
follow.
can you talk to me again?
If we have $10 million worth of insurance, roof work needs to be done, but our reimbursement is only $9 million. I'm just making up numbers here. So we have to infuse $1 million of our money to get the project done. Are we bound to follow state statutory procurement processes at that point because the project's not paid for entirely by insurance reimbursements?
So yes.
I mean,
I
that's what
believe
my
it is. I believe
assumption
it
would be, but I'd have to go back. I haven't dealt with obviously this exact scenario. I don't see how it couldn't because it falls under the construction projects. So, and those are all required to do bids. But there are other like specific scenarios where you can bypass the 3 bid with hiring an outside agent to act on your behalf. So there's just a lot of details. I'd have to vet it up the process and make sure that we were satisfying those requirements. Probably consult with legal as well.
Does anybody have any input on this?
Yes, you would have to follow the same guidelines.
Yes.
Also, as part of what we do, we walk the rooms annually. And we put together a report. We tell you what the condition of your rooms are, make recommendations to you. What you do with that information is yours. We have maintenance agreements that we could put together if you want to do that, but we'll talk about it when there is a maintenance issue to deal with. We also put your buildings all in a monitoring system that anytime that there's a wind or hail event that happens, I get an email and it tells us roughly the size and when and how long, and then we contact whoever you recommended at the school district to let them know. Probably usually it's somebody from the maintenance department, and we let them know, and we decide, do I need to come out and look at them again today, you know, and we send people out. Because in my impression that there's been several events that have happened that nobody knew about, no claim got filed, and now we're arguing over, did you do it in time or not? And this way, at least you know when it happens and what happened.
Any questions? Good. Facilities, project update.
But we thought it might be a good time to, and we're a couple of weeks out here from school startup. So just wanted to kind of run through the projects that we had on the books for this year. And kind of their status as we're getting down to the last few weeks. So I put together some slides here and just going to talk you through kind of where we are with each one of these projects. I broke them down by category. First one, HVAC projects. Everyone's aware of the ESCO projects, the 5 sister schools that we're totally renovating the HVAC on this summer. So I sent an email out to all the principals here a couple of weeks ago, and of course everybody wants to come back to school, and no contractors, and you know everything's cleaned up and ready to go. And that's just it's not going to happen. Obviously, we've got a couple schools that are really close. The key, and what I've told the principals is like we really need kids and people in the building so we can make those final balances and the adjustments to the controls and the settings and that kind of stuff. It's hard. You can start with this factory settings, right, for those units, but until you get the loaded building and get people going in and out of it all the time, it's hard to make those final adjustments. So I've already told the principals, you know, testing and balancing and controls folks are going to be in and out of buildings even after school starts. Now that's going to be very, very minimal as far as you know, how the number of folks and the disturbance that they'll have, but I think they're prepared going forward. So starting with that, we got Charles Stone's right now. So I think the office cooling, which is what we focused on first. We've told the contractors, right? The principals come back today on the 24th. It either happened today or it's going to happen tomorrow. But we believe the rest of the building is on schedule for the start of school to be up and operational and good to go. Bernadine sits to what I know right now. We're on schedule for school opening on that. And again, today, tomorrow, the office will be up and going as well. Edith Sharman, that system has been up and running and it's been tested and it's being balanced as we speak. They're working on controls as we speak, but it's cool. Florence Wilson, this is the one school that's just a couple weeks behind. So we've had kind of had a little bit of a delay in the process leading up to now. And so we've actually brought in the contractor brought in 2 kind of temporary air conditioning units for the office area, so we can keep the secretaries and the principal cool here for the next 2 weeks. But they're working hard to try to finish up that system. We do believe that the system will be up and operational by the start of school. VO, that system is also maybe a day or so behind at the office area, but it's on track for school opening. So really, we just got the one that's maybe, you know, a little questionable, but they're going gangbusters up there right now. The other HVAC projects we had in the district, Alta Brown, that system is up and running. It has been tested. They're still working on some control issues they've got up there, but that system is up and going. Forest Good, the kitchen makeup air system is completed. And then Abe Hubert, we passed that HVAC design contract here a while back. Those drawings are currently 60% complete, and we expect 90% drawings on August 10th. The roofing, all right, roofing projects, Kenneth Henderson. So areas D and E of the roof are replaced, which are the areas east of the gymnasium and then across the cafeteria, atrium, library. Those 2 roofing areas are 80% complete, and we would expect those to be fully completed within the next 2 weeks. The gym wall panels, you guys have probably all seen those already. Those are the wall panels themselves are complete. We have the top cap, the flashing that goes around the top that'll match the wall panels. That has not been completed yet, but they will be complete by the end of the roofing project. And then you got the fascia panels, which is that 2-foot section. It's kind of that front face that's on the top of the walls going around the exterior. Those are 75% complete, or maybe just a little bit better. I was out there today. They just got a little corner to finish up, but we expect that to be done within the next 2 weeks as well. Horace Good, area N is complete. Area N is basically surrounds the courtyard. It's kind of a U-shaped section. That area is complete. Area B is 70% complete, and that's the 2-story section that you can all see from either side. It's got a lot of HVAC systems, and that was the roof that had more leaks than anywhere else. And we expect that to be completed here within the next 2 weeks. And then area C is the northwest corner of Forest Good, and we specifically targeted it to be our last section because we know we can set the crane up and service that section from that north lawn and it not disrupt the school at all. So that was kind of our plan going in, because we weren't sure that we would be done before school started, so that we saved that section to the very end. Alta Brown, area C is over the cafeteria. Those 2 rooftop units that we just put on the cafeteria, those are completed. And so now we've turned the roofer loose to finish up that roof. We didn't want him up there replacing that until the HVAC systems were finished. There's a chance that those will be done by the start of school, but they should not disrupt any type of school function or opening the school. Secure entrances, as you know, we've got materials ordered for the second set of entry doors at 5 schools, Buffalo Jones, Georgia Matthews, Gertrude Walker, JDA, and then Jenny Wilson. We are currently waiting on those materials. The last update, which was last Thursday, that those should arrive next week. Roth Glasses has committed to being our priority, or his priority, to get us open for school. The remaining materials, if they don't get here in time, he'll be working nights and weekends to get those finished. Gym floor refinishing. So we have completed Kenneth Henderson, sanded it down completely to bare wood, refinished the paint, or repainted the lines, repainted the logos, and then refinished the floor. That is completed. We've also completed the high school auxiliary gym. It's painted and refinished. It's kind of interesting to go up and look. You can stand on that walking track and you can look at one side and the other side. The old side is gold yellow and the other side is light tan. So, yeah. It's an interesting comparison. The main gym, we're waiting on some paint materials and some finished materials to come in. We changed the graphics on them just a little bit, so, but we expect them to begin yet this week, and they've got a 2-week duration. Floor covering. Jenny Wilson, gym floor is 90% complete. It's probably completed by now. And then the kitchen floor is also going to be completed. They start there tomorrow. Charles Stone's, that gym and dining room, we're ripping out those 2 floors entirely and coming back in with new product. We've been waiting on the air conditioning to get back up and going at Charles Stone's in order to start that. The flooring has to get into the space and be acclimated with those conditions. That was up and going last Friday. And so we moved flooring product in there Friday and then today. And they should be, after they finish up the Jenny Wilson kitchen and gymnasium, then they'll be over at Charles Stone's in the next couple of days. So we expect a 2-week timeframe for that to be done. The Garden City Athletic Facilities, the track refinishing, they have sprayed the coat or the red or the skin coat over the top of it. I think they've got a couple more sprays on some of the runways that they'll be doing tomorrow. But then a different crew will come in and do the final painting of the lines and exchange zones and all that stuff. They are scheduled to be finished August 4th. Tennis courts, they're also being refinished as we speak. They put the primer coat down today, and they expect to be fully completed August 5th. Playgrounds, we have a Garden City Achieve. It's been a real kind of an eye opener on delivery of playground equipment. But we ordered that equipment in February. It was supposed to ship last Monday, but there's been a delay and we don't have a new ship date yet. So some indication from our installing contractors, they think it'll be more like the 1st of August. But, so we'll have to wait and see. The plant facility storage building, it is up. If you've driven by, the concrete is scheduled to begin July 31st. Then we'll finish it up with the electrical and the overhead doors. Scheduled completion right now is the 1st of September. And then we'll come in, our staff will come in and install our shelving units. New generators, Charles Stone's, Bernadine Sits, we ordered those in March. We do have the transfer switches currently, but those are not scheduled to ship until February 6, 2024. So be a little bit for those. Fire alarms, the ESC here, the installation of the new fire alarm here will begin the 1st of September. The other one that we contracted this year was Abe Hubert, but that we've held that off until next summer. It's going to coincide with the HVAC remodel. So once we go in there, we tear up all the ceiling tiles and all that for the HVAC. We'll come in and do the new fire alarm system as well. Fire alarm monitoring, we've just hired that out. Pinnacle Fire out of Wichita has the new monitoring contract, and we're changing out from the old to the new cell phone dialers, and that's going to happen the week of August 7th. That project should take 1 week, but little to no disturbance in the buildings. And then the last project here I have parking lot striping. Pauline and I have selected 5 schools, and 4 schools in this building to get restriped. That'll begin July 28th. So KH, Gertrude Walker, JDA, and Garfield. Any questions, comments on those projects?
Been busy.
We are busy.
Jane, maybe this is a Drew question, but are we update on the video board at the high school or the basketball or?
I'm not a part of that, but we've had those discussions. I know he's kind of on those guys. He thinks August 1st-ish is when those folks are, and obviously they're gonna do the football field first and then come into the gym. Is my understanding.
Garfield, the regrading and drainage of their playground, did we get that done?
We're working on that. We ordered a piece of equipment, and we're gonna install some French drains. We went out and snapped some pictures after the 5-inch rain here the other day, just to make sure that we were gonna be in the right spot.
It's more than a decade old request and of course, with the climate the way it's been, kids won't be able to use it once we get that
That's
done.
the first place we're headed with it, so. Any other questions about projects? Last thing I have for you is a summer paint crew. I know we proposed this to you guys a long time ago, talked about it in our long range planning. So we talked about using our classified staff that doesn't work during the summertime. Our bus drivers, our cooks, our paras. And so Colleen came with the idea, and then her and Leanne Tone put together an application process for our staff. We had 23 applicants. We narrowed that field down to 12, based really on their availability between June 5th and July 14th. And so we put that together. We reached out to our principals and put together a list of painting projects. So then we established 3 crews. We had 2 interior crews and 1 exterior crew. We set durations for all the projects. We kind of tried to get a general idea on time frame and how many projects we should have in front of each one of these crews. Myself, and then Ken Kerr and Ernie. Ernie is our on-staff professional painter, if you will. So Ernie was in charge of the crews. He had to supply them every day with the paint, with the brushes, with the rollers, and kind of keep projects out in front of them, tell them where they were going to go next. So by the second week, Ernie wanted to hire half of them full-time. And I told them they had to go back to their regular jobs. By the 3rd week, Ernie had came to us and said, hey, I need more projects. So we obviously had selected some very good painters among the group. Ernie and his crew painted in over 176 classrooms this summer. We painted the exterior doors and frames to 5 schools. We painted all the exterior panels at Gertrude Walker. Together, they installed nearly 300 gallons of paint. So it was quite a success. Obviously, something we're going to be looking forward to doing the next few years. We covered a lot of ground. Yeah, so we're in just about every building, I think.
I feel like that's job security for some of our employees that don't necessarily work in the summer.
They seem to be. Any questions?
Good job. Thank you for all your work.
Now we'll move to E4-D. Consent agenda, new unfinished business or new business?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the rest of you. It seems like of late we've had either texts or emails. I know we took the admin handbook off because there were a lot of questions with that. In the last few days, I've also had several questions about the classified changes and also the long-term substitutes or the substitute. And I know, and I'm sorry I missed the last meeting and I did, or not the last one, but the one previous. Did we go over the compensation study at a board meeting? Did that get presented publicly here? Okay, so because I know that that's part of it, but some of my questions, and I don't really know how to deal with it because it's on me that I didn't get these out sooner. But I feel like there's questions with the pay changes. I don't know if there is a different way to present that so that information could be shared or how we came to that conclusion. One of the questions I know with the substitutes, with the long-term subs, was did we do any comparisons with like the surrounding districts, because obviously we're not competitive with the pay that Holcomb is offering. Although we do, I know greater the long-term subs, but did we do any evaluation with that when we adjusted that rate?
Absolutely. So we looked at several organizations across the state, several school districts, and compared overall. I will tell you, if you use Holcomb as a metric, they're gonna be an outlier in everything. So comparing us to Holcomb, that's apples and oranges. It's always gonna be apples and oranges. They have less staff, they're a much smaller district. They have a harder time recruiting long-term subs, regular day-to-day subs. We looked at several different districts and compared our rates, and that's why you also saw a slight increase in rates to just make sure that we continue to incentivize recruiting subs to the district to work for us versus others. Additionally, there are some other benefits changes that we offered for subs, as well as the incentive program that we have for subs. That if they reach so many days that they fulfill within the district, they receive additional dollars and additional incentives for those days. So when you look at the total package, we're very competitive for what we're doing for subs versus other districts.
Okay,
That's where my hangup is. I didn't know about really any of this until I started getting contacted from staff. And I was like, what are you talking about? Well, I got this, I was sent an email that I'm getting this, I was promised this amount of pay, but now it's getting bumped to this. Before we even had any knowledge of what was happening. So I don't really feel like I can even begin to talk smart about it without some kind of presentation. What I would like to see is some kind of presentation that this is the study we did, here's the results, and then compare them to what we had before.
So the presentation that we did for an hour and a half earlier this spring was not that.
I didn't know, and I was there. I guess I didn't give it the full time and attention it needed, because I didn't, I guess, understand really what it was.
are you talking about the compensation?
Where we had the Arnold group here
Yeah.
that talked through, we had a 10-slide deck.
Yeah.
Since then, we've had updates that have come through the board with Minute with Mike's, a presentation that was updated on what those changes look like. We've had handbooks go out for 2 weeks now, so that questions could be presented and offered. The other piece of this process is we have followed the same process that we've always done on handbooks, which is all red line versions have gone in the amended board packet and then have gone to the board on consent agenda to approve or not approve.
I think one of the big differences this year is the changes. And I guess why I didn't think to, here's where I went wrong, is we did the compensation and we had the presentation, and then we got the handbooks split up between us, and they were all the handbooks except for admin, subs, and classified. And when we had the retreat, we kind of talked about, okay, all of our handbooks are obviously outdated. We need to get our policies in place so then we can update, and we'll make significant changes, or we'll have the expectation that significant changes will be made for the 2024-2025 school year. So with that, and my bad too, because you're right, some of those things did come to us, but I guess what I anticipated was that like there wouldn't be significant changes, because we had talked about that at the retreat in all of the books. And I didn't put together myself the addition of what the compensation study would mean to the changes in the handbook. Now, you know, I guess that's on me, but I'm kind of feeling like maybe that I'm not the only one that kind of felt like that. So now when we're kind of getting bombarded with questions and we didn't kind of get those melded together, you know, in any kind of presentation, like this is how it's going to be, you know, come out in these handbooks and here specifically as the changes, because, you know, none of us, this is our full-time job. So it's kind of hard to stay on top of things sometimes. And I'm putting on myself too, Colleen, because I know you gave us.
Quite honestly, with this whole scenario, it is unfair that staff have gone to you to ask you to answer those questions. that's unfair to you. Like, never should the board have to be put in that situation to talk about individual compensation for employees for the district. You shouldn't have to be put into that position, right? So those employees really need to be referred back to payroll, business office to answer those questions, because we're the ones that ultimately have to say it's equitable pay across the district. There's no way for every board member to know every single scenario, education, experience, longevity with the district. That's not your job to have to answer that, right? So pushing them back over to this side to review that with us, within this whole process, this is what I'll also say. We had questions that came up on inconsistency of what they may have thought, been told, promised, etc. If we had staff from payroll or business office that said, this is the number that you are supposed to make, and we have quoted that, written that down, we documented it, we have honored that. In the middle of this compensation study, there have been multiple scenarios of people having misunderstandings, but they haven't come back to the resource, which is payroll and business office, to ask what that salary has been. So there's been a lot of assumptions of what it looks like, and we're also in the middle of a compensation study. But our office, our job is to make sure that we are following what we have paid a company to come in and tell us, what do you think is wrong with our compensation? What should we do? And we followed that.
But isn't that something that we probably should have done a presentation on, so people understood, here's the company, here's what we did, here's the study, and this is gonna direct us in the changes that we're gonna make. I agree with you 100% that we shouldn't be fielding questions that should go to different departments, but what we should be able to do is say, hey, this was the process, and this, and maybe we should have been able to do that on our own, saying, hey, this is a result of the compensation study. But the problem is that when, you know, sometimes it's not easy to make the connections when you're not in it. And I know that that's probably a really lame excuse, but I'm going to use it for this particular situation, because when people do come to me with questions about, hey, this is happening, I want to at least have some ability to say, hey, yeah, and here was the process. I can't answer that question specifically. Here's the process, and then contact the person. Does that make sense? Whereas I don't feel like I have been able to do that when I'm with the things that I'm getting asked. Does that make sense? Like, some of them are, well, I mean, I don't necessarily want to reiterate specifically, but
just to make sure that everybody understands. So no one's taking any pay cuts. Everybody's compensation is higher than what it was last year. So off the bat, no one's taking pay cuts. Everybody's increasing positively. Secondly, typically these types of changes are approved by the board and then communicated to staff. Not the other way around. It's not, hey, here's the compensation. Does everybody agree? You're going to tell us if this is right or not, and then we're going to approve it.
not necessarily the compensation, but the plan and the study that was done. So they would see where it was coming from.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that, I would agree with Dana on that. So the process, so since we did hire a company to do the compensation study, I feel like we could have done a better job of communicating that to our employees, not to necessarily let them be involved in the decision-making process of that, but just anytime you mess with someone's pay, their health insurance, their cell phone policy, their car, you know, if they have a company car, like in any business, anytime you mess with those things, I mean, people don't like that change because they kind of get a system that, hey, I earn this much, my bills are this much, I get paid on this day. I have a system that works for me. And whether it's I mean, I feel like we're doing a better job for our employees. We hired a company to come in and do a compensation review, and we made a market adjustment. I feel like we're helping our employees, and we did the right thing by our employees, but I feel like that unknown is what's coming to them. And I understand you're following procedure from previous, and I understand that, but anytime we make a change like this, I think we need to communicate it to our employees just to make sure that they're not caught off guard. And what does this mean for me? Then you get all the anxiousness opposed to just throwing it out here. This is what we're doing. Once it's approved, we're gonna go detail by detail with each employee. So I do feel like we could have head off a few of the questions and, you know, some of the anxiety by better communicating in advance to it being on the consent agenda.
There was.
So there's been several things that we have done. So classified directors have been involved in decisions for their departments. So technology, transportation, nutrition, and plant facilities have been at the table, part of the discussion on these positions. This is where we're going per the Arnold group, getting feedback, kind of creating a consistency, being part of the conversation of where those where the multiple job titles that we have, we're condensing those, trying to make a little bit more consistency because we don't need 8 different types of secretaries for the district. So making some of those decisions, working with those classified groups. We also, once the edits were done, we sent the handbooks to 3 different principals at 3 different grade levels to also get feedback. Today, we met with principals since there were so many questions, and we went through the entire admin handbook, went through the red lines, did a PowerPoint presentation to them, similar to what the board received back in earlier in the spring, to ensure that they had the information at hand, that they know what was happening. Our whole communication process has been based on the board has always had red line changes, approved those changes, our communication went out. So the plan was to still follow that, and push out changes.
And I feel like you followed the correct process. I'll admit that sometimes we get so much information that I don't make the connections. I think, and I also believe that people don't like change, and there's a lot of change here. And sometimes when they don't like change, they push it to, I didn't get that information.
Right,
So
and it's frustrating from this.
I know not
standpoint
everybody's gonna
because
agree with
we'd
that,
love to give them the information and answer the questions. But they didn't come to the resources of the people that can answer the questions, right?
And
So
I feel like they're professionals and we shouldn't have to spoon feed all that.
But
I
this
think
time
that
around,
has-
there were significant changes because of the compensation study and the like, I wasn't even sure of the graphs because it had the M's and the T's. I didn't know where the T came from. And so I just feel like in these ones, yes, in the past, the board has, these have come to the board, we addressed the changes, but the changes hadn't been this significant. Or at least what I remember. But I could be wrong, but I'm just saying, I think having it follow the compensation study and having that be the like instigator of some of these really drastic changes, and I mean, they're not even seeing all the things you just listed, like, you know, getting down to, we don't need 8 different types of secretaries, we just need 1. I think not even knowing all of those things, like, it was still a lot of change. One of the questions that did come up, because there was a decrease in if you have, like, for classified staff, let's just say, for example, because we're saying increases across the board, but if they have a college, the college acquisition, those changed and those were lower. So how is that gonna affect? You know, does it overall affect that they are actually making
they're still
more
gonna be
money
making
than less
more
money?
next year because of the rate, the base changes are coming up.
It's significant enough to cover anything
Absolutely.
more that they would have got. Like, because, you
And
know, we want
along
them to
with
get
that,
college.
Right, we want to incentivize that, but
Right.
what the district has previously done is we have required an education level within the district, or within the job description. Say, we're saying it's an associate's degree. In addition to that requirement, that we have now a job description that we're compensating a number for. In addition, we have now added another 75 cents and inflated their rate of pay. So we've now paid for the associate's degree twice. So we're saying your job description is paid at $13.25. You have an associate's degree, that's what's required within the job description. And then we've also paid you 75 cents on the other end. So we've paid for the associate's degree twice. That's inconsistent practice. Additionally, with the amount of increases that we're seeing over the board, we need more consistent practices. You know what the Arnold Group said? Arnold Group said, take that completely out, get rid of it. You're consistently adding fluff to all these positions to inflate base rates to be competitive. Instead, bring up all the rates, create more consistent practices. We said, okay, that's great. We think that this is going to be too much of a hit to people. We want to make it right. So we agreed, let's make it 50 cents on a dollar instead of 75 cents and $1.50.
I did.
We made that choice.
Yeah, and I definitely think,
Just to say we still want to recognize it. We still want to promote education within our district. We think it's still important, even if we're compensating it for it twice.
I do think it's a big change, but I do think that they're going in the correct direction with it because it simplifies, it brings uniformity to our hiring process. Say in technology, we have somebody that has different Microsoft ratings. You know, if they're a tech, if they have the ratings to be a tech 2, they know where a tech 2 starts. If they're a tech 1, I mean, I think we're going down the right road. It is a lot of questions, but I do believe at the end of the day that the compensation study was good and that we have done a market adjustment to our employees. And I think that given time, get the change and then motion of the change out of it, I think our employees will be, we're not going to make everybody happy, but I think that we'll appreciate it.
Yeah, and I agreed, and when we had the Arnold Group presentation, I thought that it made a lot of sense, and I think it is making a lot of sense, but again, I feel like somehow everybody should have been made aware of the compensation study and how it was gonna have an effect on that and kind of make that connection, because it's like you said, John, too, like, I mean, this is money that we spent to do a significant, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say significant after we've been talking about millions of dollars, but significant amount of money to do something. I just feel like that kind of explanation, and even you explaining that to me, I'm gonna trust that that is, because I'm not gonna figure out the dollars and cents like for every single individual. I'm hoping that this is, and just having an explanation like that is so helpful in doing this. I don't think we have to spoon feed, but I think people in other industries would have the same expectation. If there's gonna be a drastic, and you guys did this big study, shouldn't we all be aware of that's what's getting done and a change is gonna come? And yes, we may not have the details of all of those things, but I mean, I just think it's good practice to do that. So, and please don't get me wrong. I know you work your tail off, and I know like you are doing an amazing job, and like, I agree with John, this is going in a great direction. I just because that's the way it's always been done doesn't mean it was the right way.
Sure.
There's always room to learn and grow and, make it better when different things are with it.
Yeah, and I think I'm just coming from a place of earlier in the spring, when we met with the board, we said, this is the plan. This is a communication plan. You're going to see the reflected changes in the handbooks, correct? And nothing, no other change of direction. So we're up here following through with what we have communicated to the board. And now I'm being told that's wrong.
Not,
I think
don't,
it was
please
done-
don't
I
feel
think
that
it was
way.
done the right
Please don't
way.
feel that way, but
You have to understand that's frustrating. This is the last thing that I want to be sitting up here to be talking about. The coulda, woulda, shoulda. I don't want to be up here doing this. Either. But we're trying to concertedly make efforts to do right by our employees. We're putting 3.1 million into compensation without ESSER dollars. With ESSER dollars, 5.1 million.
And unfortunately, no matter how much.
That's
we give,
district wide.
People are still gonna want more. I mean,
but I don't think it's about wanting more, do you?
We have
I do.
made efforts to make sure that even if people weren't going to receive the minimum $500, we brought the bottom up to at least $500. Everyone's receiving at least $500 over compensation from last year. In addition to that, you also have premium pay. So premium pay for classified staff last year was $900. This year it's $1,000. For certified and admin, it was $1,900 for certified staff, $1,800 for admin. This year it's going to $2,000. There are efforts that we are making to do right by employees. And I need people to wait so that they can see the big picture. We're trying to get it through the board, communicate out. The plan is to have emails that go out to classified staff, admin staff, and subs to explain the handbook changes. Hey, this was approved by the board. Here are the changes. Here are the important things. We are going to have rate sheets that are individualized because we can't summarize every pay inequity, every situation that is out there that we are trying to address. There's so many different scenarios out there that we can't hit it all in one email that hits the entire population. So we have pay rate sheets that will be individualized that are sent out to employees so that they know what their salary was last year and what it's going to be this year, so that it's transparent, so that they know what's going forward. That's been the plan so far. Today, we met with administrators, principals specifically, to make sure that they knew what was happening because of the slew of questions that the board members had. What I will also say to you is not one of those administrators reached out to anybody that could answer those questions. Payroll, me, their supervisors, Dr. Dominguez, they went straight to the board. I understand why. I understand that the board is the one that ultimately makes those decisions. But if you're confused about your payroll in the district, why would you not ask the people that can answer the questions? Are we doing this to sideblind the board, catch you guys off guard? I don't know. But in no way should you guys have to be put in that position to answer those payroll questions that are housed here. That's not saying I don't want you to know. That's just saying because of the specifics of how we do compensation, the experience, the new grade level, the education, the consistency in practice, that's not something that 7 people can own in addition to payroll who's doing it. I promise you it's been a concerted effort. This isn't where I want to end up on something that we've been working on over 9 months. Trust me.
I don't doubt at all, and I know 100% the compensation is good. What we're going the direction, like John said, is perfect. I think we're doing everything that we can. I'll take some of the responsibility because like I said, when we went over that, I guess I didn't forecast or predict the storm that it would create. So to me, it never registered in my mind, I guess, how big of a deal it was going to be. And I should have, John's right. Anytime you deal with pay compensation, it's always a big deal. And I just took it as, hey, we're doing great. We're trying to do the best we can. You're doing a great job. All the employees are going to be happy with the survey or the compensation study. And that's where I left it. And I moved on to the next thing. So.
I'll say it's obviously a learning experience. If we do another one, it's not going to be this way.
The only concern I really heard was that unsure of what they would be paid next year, years to come.
Which everybody is. I mean,
Right,
it changes. We don't know till the
It
state pays
happens
us.
every single year, right?
So-
Everyone wonders, what are we gonna make? People want to have a roadmap of, I'm gonna make this much this year and then this much this year. Unfortunately, that doesn't work when we're in public funding. And when I don't know until May what I can spend by June 30. We don't really know those things. It's all on a projection base. There was something important, Jackie, that you reminded me of that I thought was important to also note.
Colleen, you might talk a little bit about the discrepancies between, the group brought out that, incrementally, we only did like $500 each year, something like that. That was kind of ridiculous for longevity. And so by putting that money in different areas, we're able to make more adjustments for those people that have been with the district to try to keep the longevity of those people here.
So essentially, the way that we've set it up is base rates have dropped on like admin, say, and instead of a $500 increase each year, we drop the low end and then do bigger steps per year of longevity with the district or years of experience, so that you don't have, say, new principals coming in at $2,000 less than somebody that's been in that position for 4 years. So it's creating a different, it's addressing compression within the scale. It's creating a larger step, a larger incentive for people to stay with the district per year. So on the low end, that's 1564. On the top end, it's 1980 something. So it rewards staff to continue to be with the district over the years. We still have our years of service, so our longevity bonuses that people still have. The minimum, the mid, and the max is a mechanism of us utilizing that for our recruiting efforts. So instead of going out and saying a para one makes $11.20 an hour, we're able to say a para one makes anywhere between $11.20 and $15 an hour. So we can advertise a pay range, which looks more promising, more attractive to employees instead of just putting out a base of $11.20 an hour. And we did bring that base from $11.20 to $12.60, so that we could be more competitive on the market. In all actuality, what we were doing is we were shooting ourselves in the foot, because we'd say we're paying you $11.20, but people that were getting hired because of their years of experience that they bring in, bilingual, et cetera, we're actually paying $13 to $15 an hour, but we're advertising $11.20. Those things hurt our recruiting and retention efforts. People see the base. They don't see, okay, well, I'm actually making $13 to $15 an hour. So being able to advertise now minimum, mid, and max ranges is an advantage for the district so that we can recruit people. And that was what you reminded me of.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to get up here and to talk to us about it again in this setting. And I know that was hard for you. I do really appreciate it. And I know you're always trying to take the district in a better place. So I honestly did not mean to create any more work or havoc for you. I just think it is very helpful for people to hear this. And maybe we should have done this with the compensation study, just to say,
these are the big points that are coming up.
Yeah, exactly. So live and learn, we're getting through it, and I think we're in a good place tonight, hopefully.
Did you have other specific questions on
No.
handbooks to go over?
I think the
answer?
two biggest one were just the classified and substitute, obviously. Just those ones had the dollars and cents, really. So those were the ones I was getting the most questions about.
Questions? I would entertain a motion to, so moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve, what looks at the consent agenda, new business. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I forgot to say aye, I'm so sorry. Aye.
4?
On which side?
Yes, 4. Okay. Sorry.
So that brings us to board open discussion. And I think this would be a good time to start this. Because we were talking about this, but I want to read something, and this comes from the board to all of our employees. And I just want to read this in board open discussion. To the USD-457 employees from the USD-457 Board of Education, the board met on July 17th for a 2-hour retreat. Among the issues discussed were the USD-457 board policies and building and staff handbooks. The district's attorney, Jennifer Cunningham, has reviewed the policies and handbooks and recommended that the board take steps to evaluate and update our policies, as there are discrepancies between the handbook policies and the board policies. With that, the board has taken measures to have our policies reviewed and updated. Once the policies are updated, we would like the handbooks to be updated, modified to support and follow the board policies. In the meantime, we plan to approve the handbooks, with the exception of the administrator's handbook that were presented to us at the board meeting on July 24th. There have been a few modifications recommended by Mrs. Cunningham, and those should be available for your review. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to district leadership and the Board of Education. Sincerely, the Board of Education. I thought it was important just to let our employees know that we are in the process of trying to clean up our policies and make our handbooks match our policies to where we are following our board policies. So with that, I open it to.
Could I have a point of clarification?
Yes,
Did you just say with the exception of the administrator handbook?
It's not,
it wasn't on the
it's not on
agenda
this.
tonight. It was, so we approved everything but.
About that, okay, thank you.
That mean you want to speak next?
I have
You have the floor.
I have really not too much to discuss, other than sorry for being late today. I had a breakdown on the highway, but got quick help and got here fairly quick, so.
I don't have anything.
There, thanks.
I just, summer's drawn to a close. Things are starting to wind back up. I know high school band camp starts this week, and so it's just kind of exciting time about to see things kind of start back up for the school year.
I just throw out there that it seems like every time we have a big ticket item, it has to do with a facility, a contractor or something. We're behind the eight ball always. So I think we do a better job, and I think Colleen and Shane are doing a good job of, for the future, trying to protect the district a little more. Just, I feel like sometimes we write a lot of big checks that didn't need to be written if we just would have done it right the first time. So, but I know people are working hard to fix that, so.
I would just say, tonight we had a lot of information thrown at us, and we have a lot of decisions to make as a board. There was some fascinating things that were presented tonight on the roof claims and different stuff like that, and I don't know where all that'll lead. But it was interesting to hear they pitch their, pitch their ploy to the board a little bit, but I appreciate everybody on this board. I know we've had a lot of data thrown at us. We've had a lot to read and a lot of work, and I appreciate you all putting in the time. I appreciate our staff. I know you guys have worked the time on this deal, and I know that some of the questions that we brought to you and some of the things we asked to take off the consent agenda has caused heartburn, and I apologize for that, but I wanted there to be transparency, and I wanted everyone going into it to feel comfortable going into it. So know that we didn't do it I didn't take it off the consent agenda as a way to try to cause conflict. I did it as a way for transparency. So I just want you guys to know that, because I think that school culture is important. And I think the more transparency we have and the more that our teachers, administrators, staff are all feel like they're a little bit in the know and they don't have anything unexpected going to them, that helps build our culture. That helps us be a better place to work and helps us recruit people. So anyway, that was what was behind that. So Dr. Dominguez, do you have comments?
I would just reiterate the operational side. We're growing and moving the building further along. Instructional side, we're looking to engage, enrich, empower everybody in the community, and together we are better. So together we're going to keep moving forward, and with the great things we already got going on at USD-457, just keep moving it forward. So thank you.
So with that, our next Board of Education meeting will take place on Monday, August 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Education Support Center at 1205 London Street, Garden City.
Mr. President, I move we go into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss a matter with our legal counsel pursuant to the exception for matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under coma beginning at 9:15, right? 9:15. And the open meeting will resume in the board meeting room at 9:25. Would like to invite Dr. Dominguez and Jennifer Cunningham to join us in executive session.
I'll second. Let's move the second, we go to executive. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So